Aubrey spoke, but his face grew increasingly gloomy. As long as Rebecca was dead, according to the motion of the Human Hundred Cities Federation, he could officially take over the political power of Lysis City. At that time, he would be the true lord, and those who secretly called him the Soft Rice King would all face his retribution. Adeline's delicate brows furrowed slightly, and she reminded him, according to the previous plan, this operation only includes Rebecca and those who support her, not that kid Fang Hao. Aubrey nodded and said, I know, he wasn't in the previous plan, but since that kid is in the city and will also attend this banquet, we can take care of him at the same time to avoid any trouble. Adeline's brows were still furrowed. Although Fang Hao was a transmigrator, the strength he displayed would likely be very difficult to deal with. This point might become an unpredictable hidden danger in this operation. However, Aubrey's idea also made sense. If Rebecca died, Fang Hao would also cause trouble in the city, and if he was dealt with together, it would save a lot of subsequent trouble. If they could capture him alive, they might also be able to obtain some information about transmigrators from him. Being the region first would provide them with a lot of valuable information. All right then, but he brought quite a few people with him this time. He entered the city. Besides that beast-eared hero, the other lizard man might also be a hero. You must be prepared. It will be difficult to clean up if a special situation arises. Adeline solemnly instructed him. This was a crucial step for them to seize power in Lysis City. No mistakes could be made. Yes, I will be prepared. As long as that kid dares to enter the banquet hall, even if he grows wings, he won't be able to fly out. Aubrey replied confidently. Heh, that's good. You're the most obedient. Adeline smiled, her slender fingers gently stroking Aubrey's cheek. Aubrey, who had already felt somewhat listless, felt a surge of wicked fire in his heart again. He took a bottle from the drawer, poured out a pill, and swallowed it directly. His eyes began to turn red. Lord Adeline, I feel like I can do it again. Adeline gave a seductive smile, climbed back onto the bed, and said, Come on, let me see if you still have the strength. Hearing this, Aubrey pounced directly onto her. The next day, noon. Fang Hao, accompanied by Demetrius and 50 Lionheart Knights, went to the temple to deal with the rat issue. Of course, since they were exploring an unknown area. Even though it was the drainage channel beneath Lysis City, the possibility of dangerous creatures was very small. Fang Hao was still afraid of danger. The one going to the temple was not his actual self, but the demon puppet he was controlling. The demon puppet, of course, did not appear in the form of a skeleton, but used a demon mask to transform into Fang Hao's likeness. Even someone familiar with Fang Hao would not notice anything at first glance. Their appearance was the same, and their behavior was controlled by Fang Hao himself. It could also be said that these two individuals were both Fang Hao. The 52 people, carrying tools, arrived at the back door of the temple. After a brief word with the guarding acolyte, they walked directly in through the back door. The demon puppet entering the temple did not attract anyone's attention. However, when Fang Hao cast divine presence, he felt a stuffy burning sensation coming from his divine sense. Fortunately, this burning sensation was still within Fang Hao's acceptable range. Passing through the back door, they directly arrived at the entrance to the underground passage. He opened his backpack. He took out night glowstone chandeliers and distributed them to a few people. After making all preparations, they walked straight down. The stone steps leading to the sewer were narrow, originally wide enough for 2 people side by side. They gradually increased to a distance wide enough for 5 people side by side with ample space. Walking all the way to the bottom, everyone's vision instantly widened. This sewer was much taller than Fang Hao had imagined. It was an arched tunnel corridor over 3 meters high, and the distance between the sides was only a little over 5 meters wide. This distance was even taller than the corridors of the city lord's mansion. It seemed that what Miriam said was true. The underground world here was even older than Lysis City above. Lord, it's so spacious here, we must be careful, Demetrius said. If it were just a short, narrow underground drainage channel, then the enemy might indeed be rats. However, since it was so huge and spread throughout the area beneath Lysis City, Then the environment here was spacious enough for some large creatures to live. Yes, be careful. Our main goal this time is to investigate and find useful information. Try to avoid combat. If there's danger, retreat the way we came. Fang Hao nodded and said, with 50 Lionheart Knights and Demetrius, an orange-level hero. As long as they didn't encounter a demigod, he had a chance to use the teleportation belt to escape with everyone. Yes, Lord. Everyone responded in unison. Forming a three-person wide formation, they protected Fang Hao in the middle and explored forward little by little. The sides of the tunnel were smooth stones, and only the central area was recessed, used for flowing sewage. So, the path was not difficult to walk. Along the tunnel forward, various green fungi and moss grew in the dark and damp corners, disturbing various crawling insects, which scattered in all directions. The light of the night glowstones was soft, but it was enough to illuminate a large area ahead. The few people, following the formation, walked forward little by little. Everyone had already taken out their weapons, their spirits highly concentrated, ready to deal with danger at any time. After walking for more than 10 minutes, suddenly, many forks in the road, appeared ahead. The front, left, and right directions were all identical tunnels. For a moment, everyone was unsure which direction to explore. It seemed that going underground to catch rats was not a smart decision in the first place. Squeak. Just as everyone was hesitating, unsure which path to take, a sound similar to a rat's squeak suddenly came from the left channel. Shining the night glowstone to the left, they saw at the end of the tunnel a white-furred rat standing upright and looking towards them. And with the illumination of the night glowstone, Fang Hao saw its Mediterranean hairstyle. The middle part of its head had no hair, looking somewhat comical. This kind of rat had the same appearance as the rat seen in the cave, carrying a night glowstone while traveling. Go left, be careful, Fang Hao said. The few people immediately walked towards the tunnel on the left. At the same time, the rat that had squeaked turned its head and ran. When Fang Hao and his group reached the position where the rat had just stopped, squeak. This rat squeaked at them again, not far ahead. Go. Squeak. The third time, Fang Hao and his group felt that something was wrong. This rat would wait for them at the fork in the road every time. It seemed to be deliberately guiding them. This made Fang Hao and the others even more suspicious of the danger ahead. The rat squeaked 3 or 4 times, but the few people still stood where they were, not moving forward. Squeak. The rat continued to squeak, jumping up and down anxiously. Let's go. Let's see what tricks it's playing. Fang Hao still decided to continue walking. This time, the team did not get lost again, but followed the rat directly forward. They walked for over half an hour. Fang Hao's sense of spatial direction was quite good, and his original body was also checking the map in his hand. He could basically confirm that they were now approaching the northern edge of the city. Continuing to follow the rat, after passing through a circular pipe, suddenly, a surprising scene appeared ahead. On both sides of the dry underground waterway, fields had been cultivated. Although the area was not large, the plants in the fields had already grown tender sprouts. And on the other side of the fields, several gray-furred rats were organizing daily necessities stolen or picked up from the human world. Bottles, jars, or some discarded shoe heels and forks. The rats here each had their own division of labor. This was more like a miniature human city, a small city built underground. Not only Fang Hao, but everyone was surprised. Ordinary gray-furred rats obviously did not have the intelligence of the Mediterranean-haired rat. Upon seeing Fang Hao and his group, they began to flee into the dim tunnels in all directions. Squeak. Not far away, the guiding Mediterranean-haired rat was still squeaking. Fang Hao also followed forward. After passing through another circular pipe, Fang Hao confirmed they had reached the end. Seeing the scene before him, Fang Hao's pupils suddenly contracted, even more surprised than seeing the rat city outside. This was a semi-elliptical square. In front of Fang Hao and his group were layers of seats rising upwards, like the stands of a stadium. On each seat sat white-furred rats, numbering in the tens of thousands. These rats were similar in size to wild rats. The only difference was that the middle of their heads had no hair, only a transparent membrane through which their pulsating brains could be seen. Skulker, Tier 1. Up close, he also saw the name of this type of rat. Skulker. Fang Hao had a deep impression of this name. So, this kind of rat was a skulker. At this moment, the heads of tens of thousands of skulkers began to vibrate at the same frequency. The rat at the very front suddenly spoke. Welcome to the Gray Labyrinth, human Fang Hao. Why have you appeared here? What are you looking for? Or are you fulfilling your game of causing trouble everywhere and looking for treasure chests? Swish, swish, swish. The skulkers suddenly spoke human language, and all the soldiers instantly drew their weapons and entered a combat state. The spacious hall immediately fell into a killing atmosphere. When the leading skulkers spoke, the brains of all the skulkers, wrapped in the membrane on their heads, were vibrating at the same frequency, as if it wasn't the rat in front of them speaking, but this group of rats speaking simultaneously. Fang Hao was surprised by the strange behavior of the skulkers before him. But this was not the time to ask about these things. He simply replied, "The temple said they've been hearing some strange sounds down here lately, so they asked me to come down and see if there was any danger." Fang Hao lied. It was clear that the rats Miriam mentioned reading were these skulkers. "Oh, it's possible that those wild fellows secretly ran up. We will restrain their actions, and similar situations will not occur again." The skulker's sharp voice continued. Fang Hao was also somewhat surprised by this answer. The rats displayed a strong diplomatic ability. After analyzing the race and requirements of Fang Hao and the others, they gave a very peaceful and mutually acceptable answer. "Okay, I am very satisfied with this answer." Fang Hao signaled the guards to put away their weapons and continued to ask, "I'm very curious. How do you know my name is Fang Hao?" The skulkers' brains began to tremble in unison again. "In this city, we can see and hear everything, including you, human Fang Hao. Many people have mentioned you behind your back, a potential threat, region first, and a sissy who pinches his fingers like an orchid. This." The skulker listed 3 evaluations others had given Fang Hao behind his back. And these 3 evaluations included 3 different types of people: the faceless ones, transmigrators, and some cloth merchants whose business he had taken. The skulker did not continue speaking afterward. Presumably, there were many more wonderful evaluations. "What you've said, many people outside know. It doesn't mean you know everything in this city, unless you can say something that even I." Fang Hao hadn't finished speaking when the skulker's sharp voice interrupted him and continued, "We know what you need. The faceless ones already have a clear plan against you and Rebecca. But human, you should understand that information has value. It requires equivalent items or information in exchange. The intelligence of these skulkers was completely no less than that of humans. Moreover, these skulkers seem to have used their convenience in the underground world to obtain many secrets in the city. They not only knew that he and Rebecca were working together against the faceless ones, but also knew that the faceless ones already had a clear plan against them." Suppressing the surprise in his heart, Fang Hao continued to ask, "Then, Mr. Skulkers, how should I exchange for this information? Or have you already decided what you need?" They could no longer be treated as mere rats. Normal exchange was the primary condition for reaching cooperation. Woo woo woo. The skulkers' brains, wrapped under the membrane, began to tremble violently. Then, the skulker spoke again. "If it were ordinary information, we would need materials, supplies, and provisions to build the underground city. But the information we are going to tell you this time is very important to you. So we need an exchange condition equivalent to your life." Equivalent to life? Fang Hao didn't quite understand this sentence. The skulker probably wanted to describe how important this information was. "Tell me, what do you need?" "We need a way to survive. You possess a different way of thinking compared to the humans on the surface world. Perhaps you can come up with a method to change our current situation," the skulker said. Fang Hao frowned. "What do you mean?" "We are weak and powerless, but when we gather together, we can possess intelligence comparable to humans. We have always hidden in the underground world of this city, avoiding any conflict or friction with the humans on the surface, so as to reduce our small numbers." The skulker looked back at its companions. It seemed that a consensus had been reached among the group in a short time. The skulker continued, "We need higher-level experimental subjects of related races, to change the gene barrier within our bodies. Genes. They were crazy. Even rats were starting to research genes. Through the conversation with the skull rats, Fang Hao also gained some information. These skull rats have established a world for rats beneath the city of Lysis. Using their intelligence, which is no less than that of humans, they manage and operate this underground world. The skull rats have established a world for rats beneath the city of Lysis, and at the same time, they have used the complex network of underground pipes to form a network connecting to the surface world. They can use their convenience to learn about anything happening in the surface world. Whether you are a common peddler, or the city lord, or a noble in the city, as long as you are in this city. Every single thing you do cannot escape the notice of these rats. And today, the skull rats specifically brought him here, planning to exchange information with him. Information about the faceless ones, targeting him and Rebecca. The condition for the information exchange is the gene barrier mentioned by the skull rats. If the gene barrier was proposed by Goblin technology, which has a complete energy system, Fang Hao would only be slightly surprised, but he would also easily accept it. But hearing the words gene and barrier from the mouth of a rat in the sewers of Lysis City, there was an indescribable sense of incongruity. Human, the conditions are equivalent. The information we have learned concerns your life, and what we need also concerns our future, so the price of the exchange condition is very reasonable, the skull rat said again. Fang Hao did believe that these rats could obtain some information that they didn't know. But he was a little skeptical that the faceless one's plan would endanger his life. He was protected by 4 heroes and 208th tier Lionheart Knights. With the ability of the faceless ones, an intelligence organization, it would be very difficult to kill him. It was the same for Rebecca. She was directly protected by the army of Lysis City, so how could there be any danger to her life? Even if he didn't believe he was in danger. But Fang Hao still planned to try his best to reach the first transaction with the skull rats. The skull rats possessed the ability to collect information that they did not have. This first contact was also to lay the foundation for future cooperation. It's indeed very reasonable, but regarding genes, I don't know much. Why don't you just name a few things, and I'll see if I can provide them, or if there are similar substitutes, Fang Hao said with a slight smile. He didn't pay too much attention to the faceless one's plan mentioned by the skull rats. The skull rats communicated internally again, and the leader spoke again. Materials for gene research, or some special alchemical potions that enhance bloodlines, or some high-level inheritances. It seems that the skull rats have a certain understanding of the outside world. In Fang Hao's understanding of this world, there are 3 ways to obtain special power: bloodline inheritance, divine bestowal, and acquired self-breakthrough. Transmigrators, by learning skill books, directly simplified the difficulty of learning and breaking through, making it easier than the natives. However, the natives, including this group of skull rats before him, wanting to break the status quo, still had to follow these 3 rules. Breaking the gene can also be considered a way to change bloodlines through external force. This should be due to the skull rats reading books everywhere, gaining so much knowledge from various books. But even with the method, how to obtain the corresponding things is still a difficult problem. So they hoped to exchange for the needed items from Fang Hao. Fang Hao didn't answer immediately, but thought about what he could offer to exchange with them. He had money. Perhaps he could purchase bloodline-enhancing potions through the Merchant Alliance. But this kind of potion would definitely be hard to come by, and it would probably be difficult to obtain for a long time. This would stretch the timeline. Fang Hao was just about to open his mouth to go back and purchase potions for them, when Dimitega, who was beside him, reminded him in a low voice, "My lord, there is a corpse of a demon rat hero in the territory." Right. Fang Hao's eyes lit up. Not long ago, during the demon rat migration mission, a corpse of a demon rat hero was left behind. Due to fear of the plague, Fang Hao had people seal it in a stone coffin and bury it underground, planning to wait until Nelson came out to identify if there were any viruses on the corpse. It was still buried outside the city. The corpse of this demon rat hero should be considered research material as mentioned by the skull rats. If the skull rats in front of him needed it, he could give them the corpse. But this was the corpse of a purple hero, so the exchange would have to include more. After thinking it through, Fang Hao said, "I have a corpse of a demon rat hero. I don't know if it meets your requirements." The brains of the skull rats began to resonate again. Then, the leading skull rat opened its mouth and said, "We are very satisfied with your exchange. The information we want to tell you is..." The skull rat was just about to speak when Fang Hao interrupted it again. "This is a complete corpse of a purple hero. His value is definitely not as simple as just one piece of information. So I request that you increase your exchange conditions to achieve fairness in this transaction." Hearing that it was a purple hero, the skull rats showed their rat nature. They no longer communicated with a common consciousness, and the many individuals began to squeak from side to side. The scene was chaotic. As all the skull rats became chaotic, the leading rat could no longer speak in human language and turned around, squeaking loudly to make the chaotic scene quiet down. The skull rat's brains re-established a common consciousness, and the skull rat in front could speak again. "A purple hero indeed has high value. Speak, what do you want us to add?" the skull rat asked. Fang Hao thought for a moment, his gaze constantly sweeping over the group of skull rats in front of him. However, he already had an idea in his heart and said, "It's very simple, just one request. Help me eliminate all the faceless ones in the city. As long as there are no more faceless ones in Liza's city, our transaction will be considered complete." "No, no, this transaction is too greedy, and frequent contact with the surface will also cause us unavoidable danger," the skull rat decisively refused. "It's a very reasonable exchange condition. How is it greedy?" Fang Hao retorted. "The faceless ones are an organization, and they will occasionally expand their personnel. If we agree to you, we will need to keep providing information, which is not an equal transaction," the skull rat replied. "Then clear out the existing faceless ones in the city, and if I need information afterward, I will exchange other items. How does that sound?" Fang Hao continued. The skull rats fell silent, weighing Fang Hao's words. At the same time, on the surface, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Fang Hao's main body was sitting in the hall, listening to Anya and the others chat. Outside the door, a maid walked in. "Master, a carriage from the city lord's mansion has arrived. They say they will pick you up to attend city Lord Aubrey's banquet," the maid said. "There's a banquet?" Anya's eyes lit up instantly upon hearing this. "Yes, there is a banquet. You guys clean up, and then we'll go together," Fang Hao said. In the room, besides a few maids, the only people present were Anya and Aseti. The two of them nodded and went back to their rooms to get ready. Naturally, they couldn't wear armor to attend a banquet. Before long, the three of them were ready and walked out together. And by chance, Lorena also walked out of her room, clearly having dressed up as well. "Lorena, City Lord Aubrey is holding a banquet. Do you want to go and get a free meal?" Fang Hao wisely extended an invitation. Lorena glanced at Fang Hao and said flatly, "In. It's good to go and see." Knight's beauty, Lorena and Tobias's loyalty to you has increased by 5 points. Current loyalty is 50. Seeing the increase in loyalty, Fang Hao also smiled. Finally reached 50 points, it was too difficult. Seeing Fang Hao suddenly laugh, Lorena's face instantly turned red. "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing, I just thought of something interesting." "Let's go, it's just the 4 of us in one carriage, it won't be too crowded," Fang Hao said with a smile, walking out and directly boarding the carriage. Another 20 Lionheart Knights protected the carriage and drove towards the city lord's mansion together. Outside the city lord's mansion, various luxurious carriages were parked. These carriages belonged to the powerful and wealthy in the city. Such occasions often involved some comparison. After Fang Hao and the others got off the carriage, the guards were also taken to the waiting area. After the 4 of them showed their invitations, they directly entered the hall. In the hall, it was filled with the city's wealthy and powerful, dressed in beautiful clothes, gathered in groups chatting. But it could be seen that most of the people here, especially the women, most of the dresses they wore were from the bone cloth store. Even when passing by a few noble women who were chatting, one could hear them discussing the latest styles, as well as the workmanship and fabric of the clothes. Fang Hao, Fang Hao. At this moment, not far away, a little fat man was waving his arms and shouting. The few people looked over upon hearing the sound and saw the fat merchant, Eric, walking quickly. Eric walked quickly, his flesh trembling slightly. "Fang Hao, you're here too. Then, without waiting for Fang Hao to reply, he immediately looked at Laura Na beside him. His face flushed and said, "Miss Laura Na, long time no see." Since missing the last opportunity, Eric had been thinking about Laura Na. Later, he had Fang Hao deliver a love poem to her, but it was like a stone sinking into the sea, receiving no response. Today, seeing Fang Hao and Laura Na enter together, he immediately left his chatting companions and walked over quickly. Laura Na saw him greet her and looked curiously at Fang Hao on the side, with a questioning look in her eyes. It seemed that Laura Na had no impression of this fat man. Cough, cough. "This is Eric. He asked me to deliver a letter to you last time," Fang Hao reminded softly. He didn't want to get involved in these matters. But Eric had some friendship with him, and he was so persistent that he couldn't directly refuse. But he was also afraid that Laura Na would get angry and kill this fat man. If that happened, things would get out of hand. Laura Na recalled for a moment and immediately remembered the identity of the fat man in front of her. Her face was expressionless, and she said coldly, "Your writing needs practice. I'm not interested in you, and if you're too fat, it will affect the taste of your blood." After speaking, she said to Fang Hao, "I'll go over there and take a look. If I don't come back, you don't have to wait for me when you leave." "Oh," Fang Hao nodded. Laura Na left decisively, without giving Eric a chance to continue speaking. It wasn't until Laura Na's figure disappeared into the crowd that Eric suddenly realized. "Fang Hao, what does Miss Laura Na mean? What does blood affecting the taste mean?" Eric's face was still red. He knew she had rejected him, but the reason was blood and taste, which made him completely unable to understand what she was trying to say. Cough, cough. Fang Hao coughed twice and explained, "Maybe she means you're too fat and need to lose weight. You don't need to worry too much about these things. Some girls like thin people, while others like chubby people who are comfortable to touch." Is that so? Then do I still have a chance?" Eric was still a little persistent. "Eric, you have a big family and fortune. Why are you so fixated on her?" "I feel like I still have a chance. We chatted quite well before," Eric said. Fang Hao put his arm around Eric and lowered his voice, saying, "Let me tell you, I heard that Laura Na already has someone." "Really? Why would I lie to you?" While chatting, the few of them sat down at a seat. Not long after, Aubrey and Rebecca walked out. Since today's banquet was organized by Aubrey, he went on stage and spoke loudly, giving an opening speech. Although it was still the same bright words, it could be seen that Aubrey was in a more excited state today. He even mentioned the city's situation several times, without heeding Rebecca's repeated reminders beside him. There was nothing noteworthy in the long speech. Fang Hao's attention was focused on the demon puppet in the underground world. Underground, he continued the unfinished negotiation with the skull rats. Underground. After the final bargaining, both sides have reached a preliminary agreement. Fang Hao will provide a corpse of a purple demon rat hero and open a hidden market for the skull rats, where they can purchase some daily necessities from Fang Hao. In addition to providing the information about the Faceless One's plan targeting him and Rebecca this time, the skull rats must also provide the list of known Faceless One members, and if Fang Hao needs it, the skull rats must help provide the movements of the people on the list. Beyond this transaction, any further information would require additional payment based on the value of the information. "Okay, I will arrange for people to deliver the demon rat's corpse within the next 2 days. By then, I hope you will have the information ready," Fang Hao said, controlling the demon puppet. It could be seen that the skull rats were very cautious about reaching an equal exchange through negotiation. In order not to ruin this opportunity to eliminate the Faceless Ones in one fell swoop, Fang Hao planned to obtain the information from them when the corpse was delivered. Handing over the money and receiving the goods at the same time was a safe and sincere way for their first cooperation. "No, this will make our cooperation fail," the skull rat suddenly said. This statement made Fang Hao pause. How could it fail? The corpse is stored in my territory. It will take at least a day to transport it here. I will notify you to pick it up or find a way to send it over then, Fang Hao said. However, the skull rat still shook its rat head. It explained, No, the Faceless Ones have already started to act. They have gathered all their people and plan to seize control of the surface city tonight. Perhaps you are not in danger, But Rebecca will die, and the faceless ones will also successfully seize control of the city by then. Fang Hao paused and immediately retorted, Rebecca is the city lord's wife. The faceless ones can't get close to her. No, no. What if the faceless ones are people around her, such as organizing a banquet? Upon hearing this sentence, Fang Hao's heart instantly tightened. Inside the city lord's mansion, the banquet continued. All the dignitaries in the city gathered here, enjoying a lavish feast and sweet wine. Fang Hao, who was about to raise his glass for a drink, suddenly froze. His expression changed, and he put the wine glass back on the table. Under the table, he opened the storage space of the Lord's book and took out 3 bottles of advanced antidote potion, stuffing them into Anjia and Asidi's hands. Both of them were seated next to Fang Hao, and when they saw the potions he handed over, they were a little confused. But when they saw Fang Hao's serious expression, they immediately knew that there was something wrong with the banquet. Someone had poisoned the food. Moreover, this poison required the use of an advanced antidote potion to be neutralized. It seemed that something big was going to happen tonight. The 3 of them kept their expressions unchanged, quietly drank the antidote potions, and remained seated without making any moves. Fang Hao looked towards the second floor. Aubrey and Rebecca were also eating. Next to Aubrey stood a blonde maid, pouring wine for the 2 of them. Next to Rebecca stood a guard wrapped in armor. The guard was wearing the equipment used by the city lord's mansion guards, nothing special. However, although the maid was pretty, Fang Hao had a sense of familiarity about her. He felt like he had seen her somewhere before. But Fang Hao's attention was soon drawn to Aubrey, and he could see that Aubrey was indeed quite excited today. Leaning back in his chair, he was saying something with a smile on his face. On the other hand, Rebecca's face was getting gloomier and gloomier, even reaching the verge of fury. At the same time, Fang Hao noticed. The main entrance had been sealed off by guards, and anyone trying to leave was stopped. Although there were no conflicts, this place had become a space where one could only enter but not leave. It seemed that the information from the Skull Rats was true. Aubrey had indeed set up a Hongmin banquet, gathering all the dignitaries in the city. He planned to eliminate all those who supported Rebecca in one go. Then he would take the position of ruler of Lysis City. Now, the demon doll was rushing back with his people, and what he had to do was ensure the safety of his own group. His gaze swept across the entire hall, but he still didn't see Rolana. She must have gone to find Rebecca. Then, Fang Hao carefully examined the guard next to Rebecca again. Their height was indeed somewhat similar. Just as Fang Hao was looking around, searching for a way to escape, bang! Aubrey's wine glass gently fell to the ground. Like a signal, a strange smell suddenly drifted out from the corridors on both sides. It quickly permeated the entire hall, and all the guests who were eating in the hall fell onto the tables one after another, falling into a coma. Fang Hao, Anjia, and Asidi exchanged glances, then also laid down on the table. They planned to see what these people intended to do. The originally noisy banquet instantly fell silent. On the second floor, Aubrey and Rebecca's voices clearly reached Fang Hao's ears. Rebecca stood up angrily and roared, Aubrey, you dare to collude with the faceless ones. Having reached this point, Rebecca's shrewdness naturally guessed that Aubrey had colluded with the faceless ones. She had given Aubrey everything he had. But she never expected that Aubrey would be involved with the faceless ones. Overthrowing her would do him no good at all. Not only Rebecca, but even the faceless ones, before seeing Aubrey's true identity, no one would have thought that this soft rice king would be one of the faceless ones. Haha, don't be so agitated. This is not like you, Rebecca. Aubrey said with a smile. Why are you doing this? Rebecca roared angrily. No reason. It's just very frustrating to be under your thumb. I just want to live like a man. Aubrey replied calmly. Huh. Rebecca, however, showed a hint of mockery. Aubrey, you are as hypocritical as ever. If you had strong self-esteem, you wouldn't have become my fake husband, enjoying the wealth I gave you while saying you want to live like a man. Even you can't deceive yourself with that sentence, can you? Aubrey came from a declining minor noble family. He also carried a huge gambling debt. And Rebecca was also facing difficulties in taking over Lysis City normally. His marriage to Rebecca was actually a mutual exploitation. Rebecca needed a man so she could control Lysis City normally. And Aubrey also needed someone to help him repay his gambling debts and even escape his impoverished life. Although they were a fake couple, Rebecca still gave Aubrey a life like a city lord. And he could manage some affairs within the city. But Aubrey was not satisfied with this. He believed he could have more. Hearing Rebecca's sarcasm, Aubrey didn't care at all. The evaluations of him from the outside world over the years were 100 times more vicious than Rebecca's words. He shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter anymore. Look, who else will hear what you say? Your supporters will also be buried with you." Downstairs, all the dignitaries in the city had fainted, and no one would hear their conversation and spread it. Rebecca would also die in this banquet. And the killer had already been chosen, an outsider transmigrator named Fang Hao. At that time, Lysis City would also use this excuse to officially send troops to attack the nearby transmigrated cities. The entire plan was tightly linked step by step. The final victory belonged to the faceless ones, and also to him, Aubrey. "Do you think you will get Lysis City by killing me? You are just a good-for-nothing." Rebecca continued. "What if I'm a good-for-nothing? Don't forget, according to the council's regulations, I am the city lord of Lysis City, and you are just the city lord's wife. Widowed in middle age, do you think those council members far away in other cities will care about this matter? Of course, I will hold a grand funeral for you and symbolically shed 2 tears." Aubrey said calmly. He had waited for this day for too long. Looking at the most beautiful woman in Lysis City in front of him being defeated, he felt an indescribable pleasure in his heart. From now on, no one in Lysis City would insult him anymore. They would only praise their great city lord Aubrey loudly. "You wish." Rebecca looked at the guards in the hall and roared, "Guards, Aubrey is colluding with the faceless ones. Take him down." After a moment, the hall remained silent. The guards on the first floor, they still stood silently in place. Not a single one of them went to carry out Rebecca's order. "I forgot to tell you, today is the day the guards rotate shifts. Guess why I chose today to hold the banquet?" Aubrey reminded again. Rebecca's face instantly turned pale, her body swayed slightly, and she grabbed the table in front of her. "You plan to kill everyone here?" Rebecca looked directly at Aubrey. "Only your supporters will die. Most people will survive in a coma. At that time, I will announce to the outside world that you were assassinated and unfortunately died. Oh, I also have to thank you. Your little lover was not in the original plan. You added him later, which is perfect for the killer," Aubrey said, his gaze sweeping down, looking at Fang Hao in the hall on the first floor. Similarly, Fang Hao downstairs also heard Aubrey's words. However, in his heart, he thought the other party was talking about Rolana. Dressed as a man, she ran to Rebecca's side all day long, and it would be strange if Aubrey didn't notice. "Let them go. If I die, you will naturally sit firmly in the position of city lord. It's the same whether you kill them or not," Rebecca said through clenched teeth. "Heh, I know your capabilities, Rebecca. Even if you die, these people will still become my obstacles, so they can only die with you," Aubrey said coldly. Rebecca's eyes turned cold. She grabbed the dining knife on the table and stabbed towards Aubrey's neck. Aubrey's face changed, but he couldn't dodge. And just then, the maid beside him grabbed Rebecca's wrist. With a slight force, the dining knife in her hand fell to the ground. "Aubrey, how long are you going to play?" The maid frowned and asked. Aubrey was startled by the scene just now and was covered in cold sweat. He quickly said, "Lord Edeline, I'll leave this to you." At the same time, he said to the guards below again, "According to the plan, kill all of Rebecca's supporters, especially that black-haired kid, dismember him." Clang, clang, clang. All the guards immediately took action. They walked towards the dining tables in the hall, intending to execute all of Rebecca's supporters. At the dining table, Anjia lay on the table and gently nudged Fang Hao. "Hey, he wants to dismember you." "It's not me, is it? I haven't provoked him. I haven't even spoken to him," Fang Hao also said in a low voice. "He said you're Rebecca's little lover." "Don't talk nonsense. He's talking about Rolana. It has nothing to do with me." "What? Rolana?" Anjia's eyes widened. The two of them whispering immediately attracted the attention of the guards. A large number of guards surrounded Fang Hao and the other two. "Ah, braised lion's head, so delicious." Fang Hao pretended to talk in his sleep. His eyes narrowed into a slit as he looked to the side. As soon as he saw the situation clearly, he saw an iron sword stabbing towards him. Fang Hao dodged, no longer pretending, and took out a weapon from his storage space, throwing it to his CD, while he also tightly gripped the Thunder Eagle blade. Anjia used her fists, so she didn't need a weapon. The three of them suddenly waking up made the guards instinctively step back 2 steps, adopting a defensive stance. Fang Hao used this time to condense a lightning javelin in his right hand and turned to throw it at the window diagonally above. Crack! Under the strike of the lightning, the window instantly shattered. Fang Hao didn't hesitate and took out a flare from his storage space. He fired it towards the window above his head. The red glow emitted by the flare passed through the window and exploded in the sky outside the city lord's mansion. The dazzling orange light illuminated the entire sky. This fluid set of actions stunned everyone, even if the people outside didn't know what was happening here. But the soldiers in the city, seeing the flare appear above the city lord's mansion, would also come to support. Seeing the flare explode above the city lord's mansion, Aubrey's face instantly turned to fear, and he roared, "Quick, kill them, otherwise everyone will die." He didn't know why such a perfect plan had gone wrong. As long as they ate the food and smelled the inducing scent, even hero units would fall into a state of severe coma. But what was going on with these 3 people? But at this time, it was not the time to study these things. If they couldn't kill Rebecca and these 3 people before the city's army arrived, not only would all their plans fail, but he himself would also die here. So, these people must die? Hearing Aubrey's shout, the surrounding guards also realized the seriousness of the situation. Holding their swords, they charged towards the 3 of them. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, the surrounding guards completely surrounded the 3 of them and engaged in fierce combat. Anjia and Asidi protected Fang Hao behind them, ensuring his safety. Fang Hao stood behind the 2 of them and began to condense spells. Wood Spirit Servant Flame Spider Multi-Headed Fire Serpent. Summons appeared one after another in front of the 3 of them. They firmly blocked the charging guards outside, and under the flame attack of the multi-headed fire serpent. Several guards were ignited by the flames and turned into charred corpses and painful wails. This sudden burst of damage only caused a slight pause in the guards' attack. After seeing the situation clearly, the guards continued to launch their offensive. Fang Hao held the Thunder Eagle blade and engaged in close combat with the enemy. The dark gold weapon's level 7 damage made this weapon cut through iron like mud. With a single swing of the sword, as long as it hit an enemy, it would break through their defenses, and the lightning-attributed attack would kill the enemy. Even sturdy shields would be left with terrible scratches on them. The lightning-attributed attack would also cause the guards holding shields to be connected by the lightning, their bodies beginning to twitch violently, and they would be killed by Fang Hao's second sword strike. At the same time, the Starfire staff in his left hand continuously released various spells, blasting towards the enemy. Magic and martial arts dual cultivation. This made Fang Hao's speed in killing enemies comparable to Asidi's. He was even a little faster than Anjia. At this time, even if transmigrators didn't have level ratings, it could be confirmed that he possessed the strength of a hero. Second floor. The Faceless One Edeline engaged in battle with Rolana, who was wearing guard armor. There was no unnecessary nonsense. They went all out from the start. Rolana's hands continuously made throwing motions, and dense dark blood spears, like bullets, continuously condensed and were thrown, blasting towards the person dressed as a maid in front of her. At the same time, Edeline also displayed astonishing strength. Her figure quickly dodged, and the blood spears exploded behind her. With a roar, the entire wall was blasted with a hole over 3 meters wide, and dust filled the air. Edeline's expression also became serious. The intelligence of the Faceless Ones didn't know that there was such a powerful hero beside Rebecca. This no longer allowed her any slack. She flicked her right hand, and countless rusty chains appeared out of thin air, like winding intertwined venomous snakes, their cold iron hooks flying towards Rolana. The long sword in Rolana's hand was wrapped in red light. She swung her sword in close combat, the sword light blooming like a blood moon. slashing towards the chains. Boom! The two collided, and a wave of energy exploded. The entire second-floor platform instantly collapsed, falling from the air, and the rubble buried the fainted guests below. Both of them simultaneously spread their huge wings. They continued to fight in the air in the hall. Similar to Rolana's bat-like wings, Adeline's fleshy wings also looked like bat wings. But the dark brown wings were covered with small spikes, and the ends were tattered, as if they were pieced together from pieces of skin. The two women continued to battle fiercely overhead. Waves of energy after clashes shattered all the glass, and rubble from the walls continuously fell from the air. Many people were crushed to death by the two while they were asleep. Rolana looked at the iron sword in her hand, which was already chipped, and threw it down. She was only worried that there would be a faceless one assassin at the banquet to kill Rebecca, so she wore armor and acted as a personal guard to protect her. But she never expected that the entire banquet itself was a trap to kill Rebecca. Even more unexpectedly, there was someone among the enemies who could fight her to a standstill. "Rolana, here's a sword. Take her outside to fight." Below, Fang Hao's voice came, and at the same time, a Valkyrie fine iron long sword was thrown up, spinning. Rolana grabbed the long sword, and dark energy surged around her. Countless red blood spears surged towards Adeline from all directions, forcing her to fly upwards. The two passed through the ceiling, one after another, flapping their wings and flying into the air. Whether it was the sky or inside the city lord's mansion, intense battles were unfolding. And in the corridor on the second floor, Aubrey held a dagger, staring intently at Rebecca in front of him. He kept muttering, "I still have a chance, yes. As long as you die, as long as you die, I will be the city lord. I am the city lord." His eyes revealed viciousness and madness. Aubrey gripped the dagger tightly. His eyes were fixed on Rebecca in front of him. They had been preparing for today's plan for a long time. The shifts of the city lord's mansion guards, the tasks of the patrol army, everything was ready. It was also proceeding according to the process he designed. Everyone was unconscious. Adeline killed Rebecca, and the guards on the first floor killed Rebecca's supporters. It was that simple. However, this seemingly meticulous plan had a loophole in the final step. Not only did Fang Hao and the other two not fall unconscious, but they also showed strong combat ability, blocking all the guards on the first floor. Not only that, the guard who followed Rebecca also showed astonishing strength. Like Adeline, she spread her huge wings, and the two fought from the ground to the sky, already disappearing. Now, dealing with Rebecca could only be left to himself. He had to kill Rebecca before the patrol army arrived. As long as you die, as long as you die, I can say that everything was done by Fang Hao and the others. I am the city lord, and the army will definitely listen to me. It definitely will. Aubrey's voice was hoarse, close to a roar. As long as he killed Rebecca, even if the army saw the signal flare and came. He could also push the assassination onto Fang Hao and these outsiders. With his widely recognized reputation as a soft rice king, naturally no one would believe that he would dare to kill Rebecca. At that time, the plan would still succeed. Aubrey was in a state of frenzy, his thin face becoming increasingly ferocious. After making up his mind, he gripped the dagger tightly in his hand and slowly moved forward. On the opposite side, Rebecca slowly stepped back. Today's banquet, she was wearing the dress designed by Fang Hao. It was originally a shaping design, making it difficult to perform some combat movements, and there was no place to hide weapons. "Aubrey, you are in charge of the military. You are just a good-for-nothing who knows nothing but eating and drinking. Without others, you will only die faster." Rebecca's voice was cold, her eyes fixed on the other party, and she slowly retreated. She did indeed control the military power in the city, but her strength was also average. But her own strength was only average. Since she took this position, she had never personally participated in battle. She was also not sure if she was a match for Aubrey. But she could not show weakness, otherwise Aubrey would become even more fearless. Hearing Rebecca's words, Aubrey's steps paused slightly for 2 seconds. Then he immediately charged towards Rebecca with the dagger. "Rebecca, don't blame me. Only if you die can I survive." Rebecca's expression changed drastically, and she also prepared for the confrontation. The distance between the two quickly shortened, and when they were close, Aubrey thrust the dagger forward. Rebecca seized the opportunity to dodge, and the dagger grazed her waist, leaving a wound on her side. Although it didn't directly stab her, Aubrey's forward rush force directly knocked Rebecca flying. The platform on the second floor had already collapsed in the battle. Rebecca's body flew backward, falling from the second floor towards the first floor hall. At this height, with Rebecca's physical fitness, even if she didn't die, she would be severely injured. Her body fell quickly in the air, and Rebecca's mind was blank. Looking at Aubrey above, with a face full of joy and relief, her heart was already somewhat desperate. Just when Rebecca thought she was going to fall to her death, the sound of whistling wind came from her ears. A current of air lifted her up from below, slowing down her descent. At the same time, several vines extended from the air. They wrapped around her ankles and waist, pulling her towards the corner. By the time she reacted, she had already been sent to Fang Hao's side. The vines loosened, and she fell directly to the ground. The battle on the first floor was far more intense than she had imagined. The unconscious people still hadn't woken up, but in front of where Fang Hao and the others stood, corpses were already piled up. Blood gathered into a river, and the entire space was filled with the smell of blood. "Are you all right?" Fang Hao's hand was flashing with electric light and thunder, and he swept away the rebels in front of him with a sword, asking, "I'm fine. Reinforcements will be here soon," Rebecca said. At this time, she also didn't have time to worry about her appearance. She tore off a piece of cloth from her skirt and gritted her teeth to bandage her wound. "I hope so." Fang Hao didn't say much either. He took out a sword from his storage space and threw it in front of her. Rebecca didn't say anything and directly picked up the sword on the ground. Even if she didn't have the strength of Fang Hao and the others, having a weapon in her hand could ensure a certain degree of her own safety. Aubrey stood on the second floor, watching as Rebecca, who had fallen from the second floor, was rescued by Fang Hao and the others. He roared loudly, "Quick, kill Rebecca, otherwise we will all die." Aubrey's roar echoed in the hall. Fang Hao looked up, condensed a lightning javelin in his hand, and threw it towards Aubrey. Bang! A loud noise. Although it didn't hit Aubrey, the explosion also blew him away. He slumped against the wall, weak and breathless. At this time, outside the city lord's mansion, there was the sound of fierce fighting. The city defense army and the city lord's mansion guards were fighting each other. Both sides were wearing the armor of Lysis City, but they were fighting each other. In the dim night, the scene was extremely chaotic. As they fought, they couldn't even distinguish which side was the rebels and which side was their own. The scene was a mess. The battle outside lasted for half an hour. There were sounds of banging against the blocked door. When the door was broken open, teams of guards in armor rushed in quickly. A general wearing the temple guard set walked to the front. "Hubbard, Purple Tier 2. When the commander came in, Fang Hao also checked his name and rank. Unexpectedly, there was also a purple commander in Lysis City. Moreover, Rebecca gave the temple set that Fang Hao sent to this person. Purple is already considered a high-level hero among heroes. Even in a faction, they are a leader-level figure. It seems that the general stationed in Lysis City is this Hubbard. Hubbard looked at the hall, which was as if it had been washed by blood, and his face was also extremely ugly. When he found that Rebecca, covered in blood, was still alive, his expression only slightly softened. He stepped forward. "Miss Rebecca, we saw the signal flare fired here." Rebecca threw down the iron sword in her hand, wiped the blood from her face, and said coldly, "Aubrey colluded with the faceless ones. Bring him back to me. All the noble families supported by Aubrey, control them all and investigate them uniformly." "Yes." Hubbard nodded and began to issue orders to the soldiers he brought. The soldiers quickly dispersed and began to carry out their tasks according to the orders. At the same time, a small team chased in the direction Aubrey fled. Aubrey was also not lightly injured under Fang Hao's lightning strike. Catching up with him was only a matter of time, and he couldn't run far. "Miss Rebecca, let's go. I'll escort you to a safe place." Hubbard stepped forward, planning to escort Rebecca away. Fang Hao carefully looked at Hubbard, with a hint of distrust in his eyes. It wasn't that he knew Hubbard. It was because if Aubrey could be one of the faceless ones, he wasn't sure if the commander in front of him would be the second layer of insurance set up by the faceless ones. Before Rebecca could speak, Fang Hao said, "We'll stay here. Surround this place and notify the temple to rescue these unconscious people." Due to the recent intense battle, Fang Hao's blood qi had not yet calmed down. His tone of voice was also commanding, causing the army of Lysis City to frown collectively. Hubbard was also the same, looking at Rebecca with a questioning gaze. Rebecca looked at Fang Hao and nodded, saying, "Do as he says." "Yes, Mississippi." Hubbard didn't hesitate and began to arrange according to Fang Hao's orders. The entire city lord's mansion was surrounded by layers of guards, and the priests of the temple also arrived here half an hour later. They began to treat the still unconscious nobles. Above the city lord's mansion. In the dark night, two women with huge wings spread out engaged in a fierce battle. Magic flowed between the two, and weapons made clashing sounds. Waves of energy exploded, like thunder exploding in the night sky. Lolina, with huge bat wings spread out, her pupils scarlet, and a bloody aura emanating from her body. And directly in front, the image of the faceless one Adeline was even more terrifying. Her skin was as if it had been peeled off, revealing bright red flesh and blood. Behind her were huge demon wings, and rusty chains were wrapped around her body. This was no longer the image of a human, but more like a demon from hell. Blood race, you actually serve as a guard under a human. That's truly unexpected. Adeline's voice was strange, as if it couldn't be produced by a human voice. After dodging Lolina's long-range attack, she mocked coldly. Lolina, under the moonlight, allowed her to have a continuous supply of energy to fight Adeline. She forced Adeline into a special state, already sacrificing her flesh and blood, overdrawing her strength. "Umph, ugly fellow." Lolina sneered, and her figure flashed, disappearing from the spot. Turning into a stream of light, she appeared beside Adeline. The long sword in her hand gathered a rich, dark energy, and she swung it out, like a bloody moon slashing towards the opponent. Adeline's expression changed drastically. The chains around her body immediately blocked in front of her. Bang! When the two collided, Adeline's body was like being hit by a cannonball, falling downwards. Boom! She knocked over the houses below, her figure extremely disheveled. Adeline stood up from the ruins. Flesh worms like roots drilled out from the wound on her chest that was cut by the sharp sword. The flesh worms intertwined with each other, and the wound instantly healed as before. Not even a trace of a scar was left. After Adeline's injuries recovered, she kicked off the ground and shot up into the sky again. The chains on her body shot out again, and she fought with Lolina. Suddenly, a golden light streaked across the night sky. Fang Hao controlled the demon puppet and came to support. He identified the identities of the two from a distance and directly cast a heal. The demon puppet was made from the bones of a priest of the church, and all its abilities were light church spells. Light Scholar and Chosen of Light, both skills are passive light magic. And the heal skill, it can heal injuries to living beings, but if the target is an undead or demon soldier, it will cause damage. The healing spell shone down on Adeline's head. Caught off guard, Adeline didn't have time to dodge. Hiss, like the sound of burning. It was just an ordinary healing spell. Adeline's face instantly twisted, and her body began to stiffen uncontrollably. Puff! Lolina naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. She swung her sword, cutting across her neck. Thick blood appeared, but it didn't drip. Flesh worms drilled out from the wound again, restoring the wound. Lolina continued to chase closely, swinging the iron sword in her hand again and again, and Adeline also released chains to fight back. Fang Hao flew closer and also checked the other party's attributes. God Abandoner, Adeline, Orange Tier 7. Adeline. Fang Hao always felt that this name was very familiar, but he could never remember when he had seen it. But he could be sure that Adeline did possess very strong strength. Otherwise, with her orange hero strength, she wouldn't have been able to last until now in the hands of the dark gold-level Lolina. Moreover, it was still at night under the moonlight, and Lolina's attributes were greatly boosted. If it weren't for wanting to kill Rebecca by framing her, it would have been simpler for her to directly attack. The battle between the two women continued. Fang Hao seized the opportunity and released another heel. Adeline let out a painful scream, and her body was slashed several times by Lolina again. After several slashes, flesh worms still drilled out from the wound and began to repair it. But the speed of the flesh worms' repair was already significantly slower than before. This point gave Fang Hao and the other the hope of killing the opponent. Adeline looked at the two vigilantly, and the thought of retreating had already arisen in her heart. The original plan had failed. Staying here would only cause her to die here and be buried with those guys like Aubrey. At the same time, she also had to send the news of Lysis City back to the Faceless One's headquarters. At that time, the headquarters would arrange someone to deal with Fang Hao, and she wouldn't have to do it herself. Thinking of this, Adeline turned around and was about to escape. But how could Fang Hao and Lolina let her leave? Lolina continued to fight, and Fang Hao also released light magic to consume her. When Adeline's body was like charcoal, those flesh worms could no longer repair the wounds on her body. Suddenly, the moonlight above instantly turned dark red. Lolina's figure also disappeared with it, and in the next second, she appeared behind Adeline. One hand grabbed the shooting chain, while the other hand grabbed her head. "You can die," Lolina said. Then, violent energy gathered in Lolina's palm, like a storm that was wantonly released, strangling Adeline's head. Ah! Adeline's already ugly face became even more ferocious, letting out a roar that sounded like it came from the abyss of hell. The sharp scream echoed over the city. Bang! In the next second, Adeline's entire head exploded. Blood and broken flesh fell from the sky. The flesh worms still tried to repair the wound. After two light magic spells from Fang Hao, her body fell directly from the sky, turning into charcoal. When it landed, it scattered like ashes, shattering into pieces. Ending the battle, Lorena curiously sized up Fang Hao before her. It was her first time seeing a demon puppet. Its appearance and features were no different from Fang Hao's, except it had a pair of enormous bat wings. "This is my doppelganger. I'll explain it to you when I have the chance. Rebecca is safe now. You'd better think of a reason to explain your wings," Fang Hao said from the side. "Okay, I know," Lorena replied and flew downwards. At the same time, Fang Hao controlled the demon puppet and flew into the distance, disappearing into the night sky. Compared to Lorena, Fang Hao wasn't worried about himself at all. After all, he was still in the city lord's mansion hall with Rebecca. Who would have thought he was controlling a doppelganger to fight? So, there was no need for excessive explanation. On the other hand, Lorena displayed great strength while protecting Rebecca. Plus, with the battle just now, if someone investigated, it would be difficult to explain. At this time, the sky was already faintly bright. After confirming everything was safe, Fang Hao took the initiative to leave. He said goodbye to Rebecca and brought in Jia and Aseti back to their residence. There were still large numbers of troops shuttling through the streets, arresting people related to the incident. Fang Hao entered the room and directly stowed away the demon puppet. Opening the window, he looked at the empty streets outside. Even if ordinary residents didn't know what happened yesterday, they could feel the chilling atmosphere permeating the city. Normally, at this time, people would already be out on the streets working, but at this time, it was still deserted. Fang Hao leaned on the windowsill, recalling last night's experience in his mind. He was still too careless. If he hadn't learned about Aubrey's plan from the skull rat in advance, he would have been in danger himself. If he had fallen unconscious, Aubrey would have really killed him. It could be said that Aubrey's plan was perfect. Not only could he get rid of Rebecca and put the blame on himself, but most importantly, he pulled all the nobles of the city into the water. Everyone being present meant they were all in the same boat. When the Federal Council really investigated, these people wouldn't dare to say anything recklessly, lest they get burned. Thinking about it now, the skull rat appearing in the temple, and then the temple commissioning Fang Hao to eliminate the rats. The skull rat exchanging information with him. This step-by-step plan couldn't help but make him suspect that it was a strategy that the skull rat had planned long ago. Otherwise, how could everything be so coincidental? If all of this was calculated by the skull rat, intending to contact him through this plan. Then the skull rat's wisdom was higher and more meticulous than he imagined. Of course, he didn't forget the exchange conditions he had promised the skull rat. The corpse of the purple demon rat hero. He would have someone send it over later, and then he would hand it over to the skull rat. After thinking about it, Fang Hao reopened the door and said to Vanessa, who was about to go out to work, "Boss lady, tell everyone not to go out to work today. Don't open the hot pot restaurant or the cloth shop. Everyone should rest for a few days." Vanessa paused and looked back curiously, but didn't say much. "Okay, I understand. Also, tell everyone not to go out. The city is quite chaotic recently," Fang Hao continued to urge. Okay. After explaining to the maid, Fang Hao also returned to his room to sleep. 3 p.m. Fang Hao got up, ate a simple meal, and took several heroes out of Lexus City. Outside the city, in a remote cave, he met Rockhead, who came to deliver the goods. "Lord, the corpse has been delivered to you," Rockhead said. Inside the cave, a corpse was tightly wrapped in linen cloth, like a mummy, lying straight on the ground. The corpse was the corpse of the purple demon rat hero. Nelson had already come out of seclusion and had done a simple treatment on the corpse, removing any form of curse and virus from the body. And the shroud wrapped outside could also greatly extend the preservation time of the corpse. "Okay, thank you for your hard work," Fang Hao said, and casually put the corpse into the storage space. Troops cannot be stored in the space, but corpses can. "Lord, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first," Rockhead said. "Okay, go back." Rockhead nodded, rode the bone dragon, and left. Having obtained what he wanted, Fang Hao returned to his residence. After a little tidying up, he took several heroes and Lionheart Knights again, and continued to enter the backyard of the temple under the pretext of exterminating rats. Before the entrance, Fang Hao released the demon puppet and the demon rat corpse. Using the puppet, he took the corpse underground. He came to the skull rat's space with ease. A large group of skull rats were already waiting. "I'm back, and I've brought the demon rat corpse I promised." Fang Hao threw the corpse on the ground, untied a corner of the linen cloth, revealing the demon rat's head. The equipment on the demon rat's body had been stripped off, and only linen cloth wrapped the corpse. "I'm glad to see you again, Fang Hao human. You have kept the promise between us," the skull rat said in a sharp voice. "It's nothing. I have brought the corpse. Can you provide me with the list of faceless ones that you promised later?" Fang Hao continued to ask. The agreement reached between the two parties. Fang Hao provided the corpse of the demon rat hero, and in addition to providing Aubrey's plan last night, the skull rat also gave Fang Hao a list of faceless ones to help Fang Hao eliminate the known faceless ones in Lexus City. If Fang Hao wanted to continue to obtain information in the future, he would need to pay additional remuneration. The same was true for the skull rat. If they wanted to obtain supplies or assistance from Fang Hao, they would also need to provide equivalent information or resource remuneration. "We are naturally prepared," the skull rat said. Another skull rat next to him handed over a piece of yellowed paper with densely packed names written on it. "So many." Fang Hao roughly counted, and there were at least 40 people. Little Nether told him that there were only 5 or 6 people participating in the Faceless Ones meeting, but the skull rat provided several times more. "We know everything about the surface world. We have countless eyes, watching everything you have from every dark and small corner. What you have heard may not be as real as what we have seen," the skull rat said. "Okay, I believe you." Fang Hao put the list into his arms. The Faceless Ones can mobilize people in various fields, and obviously the number of people is much larger than what Little Nether has seen. The authenticity of the skull rat's list is also higher. The underground world is not like the surface, which pays attention to connections and power. After putting away the list, Fang Hao immediately thought of another question. "Riley on the list has run away. I need his location." "Yes, it requires an exchange of conditions," the skull rat said. Fang Hao took out another bead and put it on the ground, rolling it in front of the skull rat. Filth blood. Category: blood. Description: hidden in the blood is the secret of the genetic improvement of the demon rat clan. These were items dropped when killing the demon rats, totaling over 10,000. Fang Hao only thought of these beads after agreeing to spare the demon rat corpses, suspecting they might be useful to the skull rats. On the regional channel, those lords who had completed the demon rat relocation task were also selling this filthy blood, since no one knew its specific use. The prices were all based on rare materials. Demon rat's filthy blood, 10 intelligence points per bead, Fang Hao said. The skull rat picked up a bead that rolled over and sniffed it. Then it turned back and nodded to the rear. Rats have a sensitive sense of smell and could smell the blood encased in the bead, confirming it was demon rat blood. 10 is too much. We can offer 3 intelligence points per bead, the skull rat said, hugging the bead with its short forelimbs. Agreed, Fang Hao nodded. Offering 10 was just an attempt to inflate the number of intelligence points. He didn't really expect to succeed. The skull rat handed the bead to a rat beside it to take away, then looked at Fang Hao again. So, what intelligence do you need? Rayleigh's location, a weapon artifact called Sword of Atonement, and a blonde woman named Adeline. I want these 3 pieces of information. If you can obtain any special blueprints or rare materials, I can also trade them for these beads, Fang Hao continued. Fang Hao, human, we have noted your requests. Rayleigh is in the basement of an abandoned warehouse in DC District. As for the other 2 pieces of information, we will deliver them to your residence once we have news, the skull rat said, extending its claws. Abandoned warehouse in DC District. Fang Hao noted this location in his mind. Which warehouse in DC District? There are quite a few warehouses there. It will be very troublesome for us to search, Fang Hao continued to ask. The DC District indeed had a cluster of abandoned warehouses. It used to be the city's industrial district, but it was abandoned later due to urban expansion. Some warehouses were used to store sundries, while many more have been abandoned to this day, and few people go there. If Rayleigh was hiding there, it was indeed a good place to avoid the residents' eyes. 5th warehouse from west to east, the skull rat said. Okay, a pleasant cooperation. I won't disturb you any further, Fang Hao said, about to turn and leave. The skull rat stopped him again, saying directly, wait a moment, you just said you needed blueprints. We happen to have one here, in exchange for 5 of your beads. Fang Hao, who was about to leave, stopped and curiously looked at the skull rats in the center of the hall again. Rats possessing blueprints? It couldn't be a rat nest blueprint, could it? If so, could he also build an underground intelligence organization? He walked back to his original position and said to the skull rats, exchange is natural, but how many beads it can be exchanged for depends on the level and function of the blueprint. Some things may be useful to you, but may not have equal value to us humans. Please wait a moment. Fang Hao, human. Fang Hao sat down on an old wooden box to the side, waiting for them to retrieve the blueprint. Soon, a skull rat ran back, holding a blueprint in its hand. Diversion type underground pipeline construction blueprint, purple. Diversion type underground pipeline. Category, special building. Description, a diversion type drainage pipeline system built underground, with 2 separate drainage pipeline systems for sewage and rainwater, respectively collecting and loose sewage and rainwater. The blueprint sent by the skull rats was not a rat nest building, but an underground drainage system. It was already autumn, and rainy days were beginning to increase. At this time, a complete drainage system was indeed what Fang Hao needed, and it was essential for future city development and expansion. Therefore, this blueprint was indeed valuable to him. Okay, I want this blueprint. 5 beads, but I didn't bring them with me. I'll give them to you when I get back, Fang Hao said. You can, after you go back, just shake this bell, and we will come to get the beads. In the future, our transactions will also be conducted in this way, the skull rat said. It also brought over a small bell. The bell was only the size of a thumb, with a metal exterior and a clapper made of bone. Okay, then let's do that for now. After I go back, I will give you the beads. Fang Hao collected the bell and instructed, for the next period of time, appear less in the temple during the day. The skull rat nodded, indicating understanding. Fang Hao didn't stay any longer and turned back the way he came. Following the entrance in the backyard of the temple, Fang Hao secretly put away the demon puppet. He intended to leave with everyone. Just as he was about to walk out, he saw Priestess Miriam walking towards him. Mr. Fang Hao, how is the rat situation? Miriam asked, walking to Fang Hao's side with a cane. Progress is going smoothly. We cleared out most of the rats underground, but the range of the underground pipelines is too large to kill them all. But these guys certainly won't dare to come to the surface to steal things anymore. Fang Hao replied. That's for the best, as long as these little guys don't come up and cause trouble, Miriam said softly, then changed the subject and continued. I wasn't in the city last night. I heard there was a big incident at the city lord's mansion. It seemed that Miriam had come mainly to inquire about what happened last night. Miriam and her half-demon son lived outside the city. This morning, she heard about what happened last night. As a guest who attended last night's banquet, Fang Hao naturally knew more. Miriam was not interested in the city's politics, but that didn't mean she didn't want to know anything. Keeping track of the situation in the city was also something the temple priests paid attention to. Fang Hao thought for a moment and said, Last night, City Lord Aubrey colluded with the Faceless Ones to assassinate Lady Rebecca. Fortunately, the guards around her were also very powerful and repelled those Faceless Ones, so there was no danger. The events in the banquet hall last night were witnessed by all the nobles in the city who were later rescued and awakened. Even if the news hasn't spread yet, everyone in the city will know about it in 2 days. Since Miriam asked him, he might as well just tell her. Hearing that Aubrey dared to assassinate Rebecca, Miriam also showed an incredulous expression. If this hadn't really happened yesterday, she probably wouldn't have believed Fang Hao's words. Then what about Aubrey? Miriam continued to ask. He should have been caught. It will be very chaotic in the city these days, so it's best not to let the people from the temple wander around. Fang Hao led the people to the back door. After bidding farewell to Miriam, he returned to his residence, returned to the room. Fang Hao prepared 5 beads of blood of filth. He took out the bone bell and shook it lightly. The sound of the bone bell was not crisp. It was more like the dull thud of a wooden mallet hitting an iron plate. He didn't know if this sound could summon skull rats. Perhaps it would only work if he shook it near a sewage pipe. Just as Fang Hao was considering whether to go out, a scratching sound came from outside the room. Opening the door, he saw 5 skull rats. They were sitting upright on the ground, staring at Fang Hao with wide eyes. When a single skull rat existed, its intelligence level was similar to a regular rat. But when 5 were together, and their brains resonated, they already possessed a certain level of intelligence. However, their intelligence was not enough to speak and bargain with humans in the underground world. Here are the 5 beads. Give me the blueprint. Fang Hao bent down, picked up the blueprint the skull rats were holding, and placed the 5 beads into the arms of the 5 skull rats. 1 for each, their short forelimbs holding the beads. After getting the beads, the 5 skull rats turned and left. Curious about where they came from, Fang Hao watched them as they left. He saw the 5 skull rats carefully run along the wall to the courtyard, and then directly drill into the sewage pipe. The city's underground system connected the entire city, forming a dedicated passage for rats. So they really did come from the sewage pipe. After completing the transaction, Fang Hao directly collected the blueprint. The blueprint turned into a beam of light and merged into the Lord's book at his waist. Level 1 city, separate sewer system, with 1200, stone 2200, iron 500, cast iron block 320, metal parts 120. Level 2 city, separate sewer system, with 2000, stone 3500, iron 780, cast iron block 500, metal parts 250. Level 3 city, level 10 city, separate sewer system, hardwood 27500, stone bricks 58200, fine stone bricks 34700, cast iron blocks 7500, white steel ingots 3750, metal parts 1570, white steel parts 850. Description: constructs underground separate drainage pipe buildings, possessing 2 independent drainage pipe systems for sewage and rainwater, collecting and draining sewage and rainwater separately. The building materials for the underground pipes were significantly different from previous buildings. The amount of materials required increased or decreased based on the level of the surface city. In other words, the higher the city level, the more materials were needed to build the underground pipes, and the higher the level of materials consumed. This was actually understandable and not difficult to grasp. After returning, Fang Hao could directly build them in the city where he resided. At the same time, he opened the Lord's book and shared this blueprint with his subordinate lords, asking them to build the underground pipes as well. Prepare for the autumn rainy season. Okay, boss, I'll build it right away. Received, Brother Hao. Dong Jiayue and the others quickly sent back messages as well. Since joining Fang Hao's subsidiary territory, they basically didn't have to worry about blueprint construction issues. Fang Hao would occasionally share blueprints for human cities that they could use for construction. To put it bluntly, relying on Fang Hao actually accelerated their development speed. Unconsciously, it was already late. By 11 p.m., the night outside the window was even more gloomy. Since the city had not been very peaceful these past few days, taverns and nightlife establishments were all closed. The entire city was completely shrouded in darkness. Falling into a state of silence, Fang Hao released the demon doll, taking Dimika and Little Yu, as well as 100 Lionheart Knights. He walked out of his residence. Using the cover of night, they quickly hurried towards the location of the warehouse in District C. The mission this time was to find Rayleigh. Now Rayleigh was like a stray dog, hiding in the dark warehouse basement. Without his subordinates and influential figures backing him, Rayleigh was like a toothless tiger, completely harmless. Since he already knew his location, Fang Hao naturally wouldn't let him go. Timing the city patrol guards, the group quickly moved through the streets. They soon arrived at the abandoned warehouse location in District C. Using the moonlight to look towards the fifth warehouse from a distance, they could see two people hiding in the shadows on watch. Little Yu, kill all the sentries. Fang Hao gave the order in a low voice. No one was sure if there were any hidden passages in the basement for escape. Therefore, the sentries had to be eliminated in advance. Yes, sir. Little Yu replied, and her figure disappeared into the darkness. A blurred black shadow was seen darting quickly from the darkness towards the warehouse location. At the corner of the wall, a sentry was leaning against the wall, yawning. He muttered about being assigned such a lousy job, having to stand guard late at night. Just then, a cold dagger was pressed against his neck from behind. Before he could react, a hand covered his mouth, and the dagger sliced open his neck. He was dragged into the darkness while struggling. The same scene quickly occurred to the second sentry. Under the watchful eyes of Fang Hao and the others, both men had their throats cut one after another. Charge in. I want him alive or dead. Rayleigh must not leave here tonight, Fang Hao said in a deep voice. Yes, sir. Clang, clang. The group of Lionheart Knights stood up, weapons in hand, and quickly charged towards the target warehouse. Not long after, intense fighting sounds echoed from inside the warehouse, along with shouts. This operation, led by Dimika to kill Rayleigh and the others, was not difficult at all. Bang! Soon, a strong man covered in blood crashed out of the window. He was clearly Rayleigh without needing a closer look. However, as soon as Rayleigh appeared, a slender sword pierced through his chest from behind, pinning his body to the wall. Dimika walked out of the warehouse and pulled the long sword from Rayleigh's body. Rayleigh slumped against the wall, continuously coughing up blood. It was clear he wouldn't last much longer. The battle, from start to finish, didn't last more than 10 minutes. The location was remote, and the sounds of fighting did not attract nearby guards. Rayleigh saw Fang Hao emerge from the shadows, his lowered eyes instantly widening. Coughing up blood, he roared, Fang Hao, it's you. Why are you killing me? The battle just now happened too quickly. He only saw a large group of golden-armored soldiers charging in and killing anyone they saw. He didn't see the specific situation clearly. Gulang. He originally thought it was Rebecca's people, but he didn't expect Fang Hao to walk out of the shadows. Since it wasn't Rebecca, perhaps he still had a chance. Fang Hao squatted down, looking at the dying Rayleigh, and said softly, Rayleigh, you didn't think I was stupid, did you? Faceless men, arranging assassins, capturing transmigrators. Which of these do you think I shouldn't kill you for? Hearing Fang Hao's words, Rayleigh's eyes instantly dimmed. Then, they became frantic. Haha, you are Fang Hao. The #1 transmigrator is indeed formidable. But killing me won't change anything. Rebecca will die, and you will all die, including you, Fang Hao. And those transmigrators you want to protect? When they were interrogated, they weren't as steadfast about your secrets as you imagined. Rayleigh said loudly while coughing up blood. His expression was distorted and twisted, as if releasing his final anger. After hearing Rayleigh's words, Fang Hao remained expressionless. He just said indifferently, "Well, goodbye, Boss Rayleigh." The next second, Dimika swung his sword, and Rayleigh's head detached from his neck. It rolled onto the ground with a gurgling sound. The boss of Lysis City's gray industry died just like that at the hands of Dimitka. "See if there's anything valuable here. We'll leave in 5 minutes." Fang Hao continued. Everyone spread out and searched the warehouse again. In the basement, they found 2 small chests of gold coins. After Fang Hao collected them, everyone turned and left. As for the scene, these were left for the city guard to handle. He had killed the person for Rebecca. The rest of the cleanup was naturally left to Rebecca. He couldn't do everything for them either. In the following days, Fang Hao stayed in Lysis City for 3 days. During these 3 days, both shops were closed. The city was still somewhat chaotic. The 4 city gates strictly checked people entering and leaving. Nobles and wealthy merchants were not allowed to leave the city for any reason. Many wealthy people who planned to leave the city to seek refuge were forced to stay. Some who had secretly slipped out were even caught and directly imprisoned. Fang Hao wasn't too concerned about these matters. Having the Lord's Book and the divine arrival skill allowed him to easily contact the outside world. If there was any situation outside, he could return to his territory through teleportation to handle things. Staying in Lysis City was a rare few days of leisure. After dinner today, Fang Hao received an invitation from Rebecca to go to the City Lord's mansion. After these few days, the City Lord's mansion had been repaired, but the entire second-floor platform had collapsed, and it wasn't easy to fix. The door opened. 3 heroes also followed Fang Hao into the room. After all, the situation in the city was unstable at the moment, and he needed protection wherever he went. In the room, there was only Rebecca. Seeing the 3 heroes who followed, she frowned slightly. She thought to herself, "This Fang Hao is really afraid of death." "Did you kill Rayleigh?" Rebecca asked, leaning against the desk. Although 3 days had passed, Rebecca was still sure that Fang Hao had done this. In the city, someone who could make up their mind and dare to kill Rayleigh. Besides her, it was Fang Hao. Moreover, killing him so decisively, it could only be Fang Hao alone. Fang Hao didn't deny it, but said directly, "How is the cleanup of the faceless men going? You should have caught Aubrey, right?" Rebecca shook her head and said, "When the guards found Aubrey, his throat had already been cut, and he had died. He should have died at the hands of other faceless men. But this time, there was also a great harvest. Many people were found. From the military actions in the city over the past few days, it was clear that some faceless men had been investigated. But compared to the list of faceless men Fang Hao had obtained, the guards had only captured a very small portion." Fang Hao put his hand in his pocket, wanting to take out the list he had obtained from the skull rats. Before he could take it out, he heard Rebecca continue, "After this is over, I have something important to tell you." "Oh, say it. Why be so polite?" Fang Hao held the note in his hand. Rebecca frowned and glanced at the 3 heroes beside Fang Hao, then continued, "There is no danger in this room. Could I ask the 3 of you to wait outside the door?" The 3 heroes were all stunned. At the same time, they looked at Fang Hao. Fang Hao was also curious about what Rebecca wanted to tell him that required them to be alone. "The 3 of you wait for me outside the door. After we finish talking, we'll go back together," Fang Hao said. "Yes, sir." Before leaving, the 3 confirmed the safety of the room again before closing the door and leaving. At this point, only Fang Hao and Rebecca remained in the room. "All right, now it's just the 2 of us. You can tell me any secrets you have," Fang Hao said playfully. But when he looked up again, he found that Rebecca's face instantly turned red, and even her neck and collarbone area began to blush. She hesitated for a moment before continuing, "You should have heard something about the matters of Lysis City." "Huh? What is it?" Fang Hao was a little confused. "Although I hold the power of Lysis City, due to my own reasons, I cannot truly be recognized by the Federal Council, so—" Rebecca stopped abruptly at this point. Fang Hao remained seated in his original position, not understanding the purpose of Rebecca telling him this. Although he had heard about these matters, what did they have to do with him? Seeing Fang Hao still looking confused, Rebecca's face turned even redder. She gritted her teeth and said, Aubrey is dead. I need a husband with a human identity to be the city lord of Lysis City. I will still be the city lord's wife. Cough, cough. Hearing this, Fang Hao choked and let out 2 dry coughs. You're not. Yes, I need someone I can trust and who can help Lysis City to be this city lord. I discussed it with Rolana, and we feel you are more suitable, and I don't feel any resistance towards you. Rebecca took a step forward, looked him directly in the eyes, and said seriously. Due to Rebecca's half-elf identity, the Federal Council would not allow her to manage Lysis City. Now that Aubrey was dead, she still needed a man to silence those guys in the council and prevent them from finding any reason to take the city. But she was tired of Aubrey's incompetence and wanted to find a man who could help Lysis City to be her husband. These past 2 days, she, her supporters, and Rolana had discussed these matters. When they discussed the conditions that the candidate for city lord needed to meet this time, they found it very difficult to find such a man in the city. Finally, Rolana directly gave her a name, Fang Hao. If there was one man in the city who could meet Rebecca's requirements, it was Fang Hao. There was no second person. If there was, Rebecca wouldn't have chosen Aubrey among the fallen nobles back then. Therefore, after discussing it, Rebecca directly found Fang Hao and told him about this matter. Fang Hao was equally shocked to hear this news. Who would have thought that she came to find him to be her husband? This was too sudden. I treat you as a partner, and you actually want to sleep with me. Fang Hao sat in the chair, his face full of astonishment. Are you kidding me? Rebecca looked serious, not joking in the slightest. Do you think I would joke about something like this? With Rebecca's personality, she naturally wouldn't joke about such a thing. But Fang Hao was also very curious. Rebecca knew his identity as a transmigrator and that he was from outside the city, so why would she choose him? It would be easier for her to just choose a local person in the city to be a kept man. Wasn't she afraid that the strength he had shown would usurp her power? I'm very curious. You can slowly find a local person. Why the rush? Fang Hao asked the question in his heart. Rebecca explained, I received news that a representative from the council will arrive in Lysis City within 3 days. Although I don't know the purpose of his visit, Lysis City cannot be without a city lord during this time. While Rebecca was busy encircling and suppressing the faceless ones, she received news that someone from the council was already on the way. She suspected that this was also part of Aubrey's plan. That is, after killing her, the council's people would arrive in Lysis City at just the right time. At that time, the news of Rebecca's accidental death would naturally reach the council's ears, and he would officially secure his position as city lord. By then, even if the city's guards felt that Rebecca's death was suspicious, they would be unable to investigate further because the power had fallen into Aubrey's hands. It could be said that this plan was very meticulous, with every step in his plan. Unfortunately, his plan ultimately failed, and Rebecca still needed to deal with the mess he left behind. The council already held a distrustful attitude towards Rebecca's identity. Therefore, she had to determine the candidate for city lord before the council's people arrived, not giving them any chance to interfere. This is a bit unfair to you, Fang Hao said. To consolidate her power, she was marrying herself off. Fang Hao felt that it was a bit unfair to Rebecca. Unfairness happens in every corner of this city. Everyone is compromising for the sake of life. I'm fine with it. Moreover, I promised the old city lord that I would protect this city, so I won't give up easily, Rebecca said softly, looking up at the ceiling. Although her tone was light, one could feel her firm belief. Compared to Pearl City, Lysis City was already developing very well. Only here did Fang Hao feel like he was in a city. The other places were more like a small town or village. Fang Hao thought for a while, then scratched his head and said, Rebecca, you don't really understand me. What is there to not understand? Rebecca asked. She possessed elven blood, inheriting a portion of the elves' appearance and lifespan. Moreover, she was also a top-tier beauty. There was no way she couldn't handle such a big boy, right? Ahem. I have a territory. The area is relatively large, and I already have several women by my side. Fang Hao thought for a while and decided to say these things. His faction was still mainly undead, and his main force was also an undead army. With Rebecca being an important member of the 100-city federation of the human race, she might not be able to accept these things. Moreover, he also had to consider Lorena's feelings. Anything else? Rebecca's expression didn't change much. Nothing else, Fang Hao replied. I understand some of the things about your territory. It's not a bad thing for List City. As for the women, I won't interfere with that. You can rest assured, Rebecca said with a smile. She had learned some things about Fang Hao from Lorena. Fang Hao's power would also greatly help the development of List City. She could use Fang Hao's power to increase the development speed of List City. Things that she couldn't do before could be carried out with Fang Hao's help. She had already considered this point. As for the issue of Fang Hao's women, she wouldn't interfere. As long as he played the role of a substitute husband at critical moments, that would be enough. Fang Hao continued to emphasize, no, you don't understand my meaning. I own a territory. After you choose me, your city will become an affiliated city of my territory. Do you understand what I mean? This was a key point in Fang Hao's expression. List City belonged to the 100-City Federation as an independently existing entity, that is, a city under self-governance. Although Rebecca faced suspicion and surveillance from the council, she still had the right to dispose of the entire city. But once she let Fang Hao sit in the position of city lord, she herself would be the city lord's wife. According to the rules of the Lord's book, List City would be classified as an affiliated city of the territory, and Rebecca would also become the administrator of this city. Her role would change from a local emperor to the city lord of a city. This kind of status had a considerable difference. I can accept this, but you must ensure my position in List City, including control of the army and the entire city, Rebecca replied quickly. Lorena had mentioned these things to her. According to Lorena, Fang Hao possessed enough power to deter and defeat the 100-City Federation. Moreover, Fang Hao and the 100-City Federation were likely to have a war in the future, and List City would be caught in the middle, in a very dangerous position. Therefore, it was better to choose a side in advance. If there was no war, List City would be a member of the 100 Cities and also an affiliated city of Fang Hao. Once the war started, the 100 Cities would not trust her either, so she might as well take this opportunity to stand on Fang Hao's side. Everything was discussed between her and Lorena before talking to Fang Hao about this matter. Aside, Fang Hao was also considering this matter. If it hadn't been for the sudden turn of events, he would have wanted to go back and discuss it with Nielsen. But everything Rebecca said was not bad for him. It was just a fake marriage with him. He would not only have a prosperous affiliated city, but also a large population to give the Godhead and increase the power of faith. It was indeed a win-win situation. Fang Hao re-examined Rebecca. Today, she was wearing a cheongsam produced by bone, with a tightly buttoned high collar, making her even more upright. Her chest was full without any excess, and the wrapped hips and slightly tight waist showed off her proud curves. Especially the slits on both sides, leaning on the desk, revealing her round and fair long legs. He wouldn't be at a disadvantage either. After thinking about it, Fang Hao said, I can promise you that List City will still be under your responsibility. I usually won't interfere, but if there are things that go against the overall development of the territory, the development of the territory should be the priority. Okay, Rebecca agreed. Standing up from her leaning posture, she walked to Fang Hao's side. Let's go. I'll take you to the hall to announce it. I still need to focus my energy on investigating the faceless ones. The two walked out of the room. The three heroes and the guards of the city lord's mansion followed behind them. They walked together towards the location of the hall. Arriving at the hall, Rebecca introduced, This is the city lord's mansion. I will announce the news of you becoming the city lord later. Whoosh. As soon as these words came out, a burst of exclamations immediately came from the audience. No one expected that after the two people talked alone in the room, Fang Hao would become the city lord. What's more, it hadn't even been 2 days since Aubrey's death. You? And Zhao was about to exclaim. Fang Hao covered her mouth and said, I'll tell you when we get back. And Jia didn't have any special rejection of these ideas. But after all, she was close to Fang Hao, and she had also heard about Lorena and Rebecca. If Fang Hao and Rebecca get together, who can handle that woman when she goes crazy? Oh, and Jia nodded hurriedly. Fang Hao didn't stand on ceremony and walked straight to the city lord's seat in the hall, sitting down directly. The moment his butt landed, system notifications sounded one after another. Lix's city has become your subordinate city. You can rename the city here and control all resources of the city and its affiliated villages. The appearance of the system notification indicates that Lixis City has officially become Fang Hao's subordinate city. To occupy the next city through marriage was something he had never thought of. He cooperated with Rebecca to clean up the faceless ones in the city, and after all the fuss, he ended up sitting here. Life truly is unpredictable. In short, this place belongs to Fang Hao now. Moreover, the addition of Lixis City has caused the proportion of humans in the territory's total population to surpass that of the Beastmen, becoming the race with the highest population. Opening the Lord's book, he directly filled in Rebecca's name in the governor column. Successfully set Rebecca as the governor of Lixis City. Rebecca's current loyalty to you is 90 points. After setting Rebecca as the governor, loyalty immediately appeared. Starting at 90 points, this loyalty is already frighteningly high, unlike the loyalty of native residents who join. It's even higher than the loyalty summoned by recruitment scrolls. Such high loyalty should be directly related to Fang Hao's help in capturing the faceless ones and later saving her. Rebecca's trust in Fang Hao even exceeds that of most officials in the city. Lixis City. City level, level 12 native ancient city. Attributes: grain production plus 30%, population reproduction plus 30%, city prosperity plus 25%, commerce plus 20%, military plus 20%. Description: a city with attributes can bring various different benefits, accelerating the city's construction and development. The city level of Lixis City is actually a level 12 ancient city. This level has already exceeded the level of Fang Hao's main city and is the city with the highest level in the territory. Although it is unclear what is special about the ancient city, the attached attributes are the most numerous and the largest in value among all cities. This also shows the difference between Lixis City and other cities. No wonder the population is several times larger than outside. These attached attributes are enough to make it far ahead of other cities. Just when Fang Hao thought things were over, a system notification appeared again. Due to your faction affiliation, the Statue of Light will lose its effect. Your actions have attracted the attention of the God of Light. 2 consecutive messages appeared in front of Fang Hao. He originally knew that the Undead faction could not build the Statue of Light, but he encountered for the first time that a statue that had already been built lost its effect due to the change of the city's faction. Moreover, it seems that his actions have attracted the attention of the God of Light, which is not a good thing for him. The strength shown by the quasi-god Lord of Thunder he encountered last time had already exceeded the capabilities of ordinary heroes. He stubbornly exhausted tens of thousands of people to exhaust him to death. This time, he has attracted the attention of a true god, and he must be vigilant and careful. But he doesn't need to worry too much about this kind of thing. Gods naturally possess great strength, but there must also be rules that limit them. As long as the God of Light doesn't come down in person, he won't be afraid. After reading the city attributes, Fang Hao got up from the seat again. According to the agreement, Rebecca would still be responsible for this place. Unless the matters here conflict with Fang Hao's plan, he wouldn't interfere with Rebecca in the remaining matters. In fact, the cities of the various cities and transmigrators are all in this mode, and Fang Hao rarely interferes. Moreover, judging from the current development of Lixis City, he may not have Rebecca's management talent. His random participation might be counterproductive. Sitting down on the chair below, Fang Hao continued, "What's your plan for the faceless ones?" He originally wanted to take this opportunity to give the list of faceless ones to Rebecca, but he didn't expect that after a busy period, he would directly take this place as a subordinate city. The list was not sent out instead. This is also what I'm worried about. Before the people from the Federation come, I must suppress this matter. Even if I can't catch them, I must ensure that no accidents happen on that day. Rebecca sat down in the seat next to her and said softly, "This matter is easy to handle. I can give you a solution," Fang Hao said. "Now is the time for my lord to perform." "Oh, what's your solution?" Fang Hao took out the list and pushed it in front of her from the table. "Here is a list of all the faceless ones in the city. You can arrest them according to the names on the list, which will be faster than interrogating and checking them bit by bit." "Really?" Rebecca obviously didn't believe it and took the list to take a rough look. As she watched, the disbelief on her face gradually subsided. Because some of the names on the list had already been confirmed as faceless ones and had been arrested in the past 2 days. And some of the remaining people on the list were also within the scope of investigation. Now it can basically be determined that the list is accurate. Where did you get it? Why didn't you give it to me before? Rebecca frowned and said. Fang Hao explained. It was also after the city lord's mansion incident last time that I spent a great price to exchange for the list. I was going to send it to you today. Exchanging for this information from the skull rats cost him the corpse of a purple hero, which was a great price, and not everyone could take it out. Okay, thank you. Rebecca showed a gentle smile. Rebecca's loyalty to you has increased by 5 points, current loyalty 95. When she put away the list, Rebecca's loyalty increased by another 5 points. According to this rate of increase, it should soon reach 100 points. By then, even if he doesn't sign a slave contract with Rebecca, she won't betray him after reaching 100. You're welcome, we're family. Fang Hao waved his hand slightly and then thought of something, asking, by the way, can I live in the city lord's mansion from now on? Yes, the place where Aubrey lived has been vacated. You can live there. In the city lord's mansion, Aubrey and Rebecca's living areas were separate. Now that Aubrey is dead, the room is naturally vacated. Moreover, with such a large place as the city lord's mansion, it is completely sufficient to accommodate Fang Hao and his people. Okay, Aseti, arrange it this afternoon, and we'll move over here. Fang Hao didn't stand on ceremony. Yes, sir, Aseti agreed directly. After everything was properly arranged, Rebecca still had to deal with the matter of the faceless ones. Okay, if there's anything, we'll talk about it at dinner. I still need to deal with the matter of the faceless ones as soon as possible. Okay. The two groups separated. Rebecca went to mobilize the army to arrest the faceless ones according to the list. Fang Hao began to move, officially moving into the city lord's mansion. At the same time, the guards in his living area were all replaced by Lionheart Knights, responsible for Fang Hao's safety. In the afternoon, the news of Fang Hao becoming the city lord was posted throughout the city. There was no grand wedding, nor did they go to the temple to receive the blessing of the gods. Only notices were posted on several bulletin boards in the city. They confirmed Fang Hao's identity as the city lord and the news of his marriage to Rebecca. Currently, there aren't many people on the streets. But this news will soon spread throughout the city, becoming known to every household. 3 o'clock. Fang Hao sat in a room in the city lord's mansion. Beside him were his several heroes. He briefly explained to everyone how he suddenly became the city lord. To summarize, Fang Hao was playing the role of a husband. This prevented the federal parliament from having an excuse to take over the city, and at the same time, he took down this level 12 affiliated city through peaceful means. When Fang Hao repeated Rebecca's words, injustice happens in every corner. I'm lucky enough to still have a choice. Everyone felt a bit of admiration for this woman. This sentence perfectly represents the social culture of this era. Wars have never stopped, and the law of the jungle exists in every corner. Thump, thump, thump. Someone knocked on the door. Come in. The door opened, and it was the Lionheart Knight guarding outside. My lord, the priest from the temple is here and waiting for you in the hall. The priest from the temple was naturally Miriam. Why was she looking for him? He was a fake city lord. All right, let's go out and see. After Fang Hao finished speaking, he led everyone to the hall of the city lord's mansion. As soon as they entered the hall, they saw Miriam sitting below. However, Miriam seemed to be in good condition. Her skin, which was originally wrinkled like tree bark due to old age, was much younger than before. Priest Miriam, are you looking for me? Fang Hao asked curiously. Miriam stood up and bowed slightly. My lord, city lord. There was no surprise or question in her expression. It seemed she had already received the news that Fang Hao was the city lord. All right, have a seat. Fang Hao also sat down beside her. Miriam sat down again, and a maid served fruit tea. My lord, city lord, there are some problems at the temple. Miriam got straight to the point after sitting down. Priest Miriam, wouldn't it be better to talk to Rebecca about this? As the city lord, it's actually quite difficult for me to mobilize the city's manpower and resources. Fang Hao replied directly. Lysis City was his affiliated city, but in the eyes of the city's residents and soldiers, he was still just Rebecca's husband, a puppet city lord. Moreover, in his agreement with Rebecca, he would not interfere with her authority in Lysis City. In short, finding Rebecca in this city was more useful than finding him. Lady Rebecca asked me to come and see you. Miriam placed her staff in front of her and looked straight ahead. Oh, all right then, tell me what's going on. For some unknown reason, the glory of the gods can no longer bless this city, and cracks have appeared in the statue of the god of light in the temple. Miriam said, making the gestures of the church. Hearing Miriam's words, Fang Hao immediately remembered that after the system showed that he had occupied the city, it also showed that due to faction reasons, the statue of the god of light would lose its function. Not only could the temple priest feel this, but even the statue had cracked. Fang Hao glanced at Miriam and asked, "Do you know the reason?" "I'm not sure. Perhaps the bishop will receive some divine revelation." Miriam replied. "Then, Priest Miriam, why have you come here? Do you want me to do something for the temple? Repair the statue?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Many residents of Lysis City believed in the god of light. Even if the statue was broken, it couldn't be directly thrown out of the temple. It needed to be gradually guided and then replaced with a statue of the king. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Miriam fell silent. As if she had made a decision, she spoke. "My lord city lord, my son is staying here. His identity prevents him from moving to other cities to settle, so I plan to stay. Although I can no longer serve as a priest of light, I can pass on my knowledge." Miriam's son was a half-demon. Let alone going to other human cities, even within Lysis City, he had to be very careful to enter. Once his identity was exposed, even if he hadn't done anything wrong, his half-demon identity was enough for him to be executed. Therefore, for the sake of her son, Miriam did not plan to leave here. Fang Hao heard Miriam's reason, but did not show any surprise. In his opinion, although Miriam had faith, she was not a fanatic. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hidden the temple all this time and raised a half-demon. Leaving the Church of Light and staying here was understandable. "I can agree to this on behalf of Rebecca. You can continue to stay in the temple. The temple will be renovated and adjusted at that time, and you will still hold the position of priest." Fang Hao agreed directly. Miriam thought for a moment, but did not refuse. "Understood, my lord city lord. I will do my job well. All right, when the time is right, I will also give your son an identity so that he can enter and exit Lysis City normally, and no one will convict him because of his identity." Hearing Fang Hao's words, Miriam's expression clearly changed. Her cloudy eyes, at this moment, flashed with a special light. "Thank you, my lord. I understand," Miriam said. "All right, you can go and get busy. Everything will continue as usual. You don't need to worry about the changes in the city, and the army will not interfere with the temple." "Yes, my lord." Miriam left, and Fang Hao returned to his room. Before dinner, Fang Hao saw Rolana. He also met with several officials from the city. Unlike Fang Hao's other affiliated cities, Lysis City had a complete system of officials. Each person had a fixed scope of responsibility. It was unlike Fang Hao's side, where besides himself and the heroes, there were just a bunch of undead. After having dinner, Fang Hao used the demon teleportation to return to the main territory. Lysis City had already become Fang Hao's affiliated territory, so he could use the teleportation light curtain to directly teleport to the city lord's hall, not the center of the city. This point already met the conditions for him to teleport back and forth. It was like going to work. He would go to Lysis City during the day and return to the territory to rest and sleep at night. The light curtain appeared in the main city, and Fang Hao, along with Dimitrija, Anya, and others, walked out of the light curtain. Returning to his own home instantly made him feel much more at ease. He no longer had to worry about encountering any unpredictable dangers. "Master, you're back." Eeyore came over with the maids. "Yes, how is it? Nothing happened in the city recently, right?" Fang Hao smiled. Just as Eeyore was about to answer, Anya hooked her arm and said, "I need to tell you something important." Saying that, she pulled Eeyore aside. Eeyore was dragged away, and she quickly turned back and said, "Scholar Nelson is out, and there's a skeleton hero too." After saying this, she had already been pulled back to the Lord's mansion by Anya. The rest of the maids, after greeting Fang Hao, also left to attend to their own matters. Fang Hao was actually aware of Nelson coming out of seclusion. The demon rat hero corpse that was exchanged by the skull rats was transported to Lysis City only after Nelson confirmed that it was not carrying a virus. Otherwise, Fang Hao wouldn't dare to transport such a corpse to the densely populated Lysis City. And the new skeleton hero who appeared with Nelson was probably the orange hero from the Bloody Mountains, Flesh Fist, Caius. Walking out of the Lord's mansion, he went directly to the Organ Museum. As soon as he entered the first-floor hall, he saw some funeral priests grinding herbs and preparing materials needed for rituals. "My lord," a funeral priest saw Fang Hao and bowed. "Yes, where is Scholar Nelson?" Fang Hao asked. The funeral priest replied, "The scholar is on the second floor. I will inform the scholar. Please wait a moment, my lord." "All right." The funeral priest bowed again and quickly walked towards the second floor. The Organ Museum, unlike other buildings, always gave people a gloomy and cold feeling, and it stored many organs and materials. Unless necessary, Fang Hao still didn't plan to go up to the second floor himself. After a while, footsteps were heard from the stairs. Nelson came down slowly with a tall troll skeleton hero. "My lord." Nelson bowed slightly, and the tall skeleton hero behind him knelt on one knee, his attitude more respectful. The skeleton hero was tall, wearing heavy armor, with broad hands and a pair of huge, scaly gloves. Flesh Fist, Orange Tier 3. It was indeed the orange hero Caius, the leader who led the trolls and planned to rush out of the Bloody Mountains. At this time, he had become a skeleton hero, only loyal to Fang Hao's territory and heroes. Flesh Fist, Orange Tier 3. Faction, Undead. Template, Gold. Racial traits, Undead, Hollow Bones, Light Weakness. Legion talent, Giant Leader, Centralization, Fight or Died. Skills, Fleshless Body, Multi-Strike, Charged Punch, Ignore Pain, Berserker's Rage. Innate abilities, Advanced Combat Mastery, Advanced Defense Mastery, Domain Fist Mastery. Giant Leader. This unit commands troll-type troops, including trolls, giant descendants, skeleton trolls, increasing attack power by 50%, critical strike chance by 20%, movement speed by 5%, morale by 20%, and maintaining the army in a standby state, additionally increasing morale recovery by 1%. Centralization. When this unit simultaneously commands infantry, ranged, and cavalry, the Legion's overall attributes are increased by 20%. Charged Punch, active. Swing a charged punch forward, increasing damage by 300%. Ignore Pain, active. All damage taken is reduced by 50%, and all control effects are immune, lasting for 15 seconds. Berserker's Rage, active. Enter a state of rage, increasing critical strike by 10%, attack speed by 25%, evasion chance by 20%, and movement speed by 20%, lasting for 20 seconds. Description: a product of the immortal Lich, not recognized by the god of the undead. This hero cannot be leveled up or advanced. Flesh Fist was an orange combat hero. All attributes and skills were more inclined towards combat and attack. Compared to the newly joined Ascidi, Flesh Fist was more focused on individual combat power, while Ascidi was more like a general. There was still a certain difference between the two. "Welcome your joining, Flesh Fist." Fang Hao said the same. After being made into skeleton heroes, their original names were removed, and only their hero nicknames from before death were kept. Names like Bloodhunter and Fireblade were fine. They sounded quite powerful. But something like Flesh Fist didn't sound as imposing. "Thank you, my lord." Flesh Fist stood up and stood respectfully to the side. "All right, Flesh Fist, go outside the gate and be responsible for the city's defense and patrol with Rockhead." Fang Hao continued. "Yes, my lord." Flesh Fist accepted the order and strode towards the city gate. After Flesh Fist left, Fang Hao recounted everything that had happened during this time to Nelson from beginning to end. This included killing the demigod, the Lord of Thunder, and later marrying Rebecca, and incorporating the level 12 Lysis city into the territory's affiliated cities. Nelson remained silent throughout, quietly listening to what had happened in the territory while he was in seclusion working. He also expressed his approval of Fang Hao's decisions. Perhaps some things could have been handled better at this time, but in the immediate aftermath of the events, Fang Hao's decisions were considered stable. After chatting with Nelson for a while, Fang Hao also returned to the Lord's mansion. In front of the Lord's mansion, Fang Hao opened the Lord's book and found the newly acquired blueprint branching underground pipeline blueprint. Level 10 City, branching underground pipeline, 27,500 hard and tough wood, 58,200 stone bricks, 34,700 fine stone bricks, 7,500 cast iron blocks, 3,750 white steel ingots, 1,570 metal parts, 5 traces of the earth. Description: constructing an underground branching drainage pipeline system with 2 independent drainage pipeline systems for sewage and rainwater, collecting and draining sewage and rainwater separately. Currently, the main city's urban level was level 10. The required materials were all available in the warehouse, so it could be built directly. The ground began to tremble softly. The maids, thinking it was an earthquake, rushed out of the building. Seeing Fang Hao standing in front of the Lord's mansion, they all ran over, showing concern. Fang Hao explained to them that he was building a sewer. But the maids still stood by Fang Hao's side, waiting together for the construction to be completed. It took about half an hour. The ground tremors stopped. Level 10 branching underground pipeline, construction completed. From now on, the drainage of rainwater and sewage in the territory would be much more convenient. After the underground pipeline was completed, Ear also finished preparing dinner. She notified Fang Hao to eat. After having dinner, Fang Hao leisurely soaked in the hot spring, enjoying the pleasant evening. Ear came in with fruit wine and a fruit platter and sat down beside Fang Hao. Without needing Fang Hao to do anything, her fair fingers picked up a piece of fruit and fed it into Fang Hao's mouth. Fang Hao bit down hard, and the sweetness of the fruit and the aroma of the wine exploded in his mouth. "What is this?" Fang Hao asked curiously, as it was his first time eating it. Ear smiled and said, "I just soaked the fruit in some wine. How does it taste?" It's delicious," Fang Hao praised while chewing. Ear's face lit up with joy, and she fed Fang Hao one piece of fruit after another. Just as Fang Hao was enjoying Ear's personal service, the Lord's book suddenly sent a private message. Fang Hao opened it and found that it was from Deng Bin, the Lord who sold him flax. Deng Bin was a woman, but her name and appearance were more like a man's. Especially last time, she had sent Fang Hao a photo of herself. Under the light of a torch, she had a thin face, a buzz cut, and a full arm of tattoos. She gave off a feeling of being difficult to mess with, but in the subsequent collaborations, Deng Bin's personality was straightforward and generous. Moreover, by continuously supplying Fang Hao with flax, and with sufficient food and clothing, she was also rapidly developing her territory's strength. Her main city reached level 7, and the number of troops in the city also exceeded 500, making her a mid to upper level lord in the channel. But after reaching level 7, to upgrade the main city further, she needed roof tiles. Even at this point, not many lords had roof tiles. The person with the largest sale of roof tiles in the channel was still Fang Hao. "Boss Fang Hao, I want to buy some roof tiles from you. Is that convenient?" Deng Bin got straight to the point. Fang Hao replied, "Of course. The production of roof tiles is still quite sufficient now." Both the main city and Su Yang's territory were producing roof tiles. Especially, the territory Su Yang was currently living in was previously Qiu Zhishang's, where a roof tile production base had been built. Large areas of kills were all producing roof tiles. Boss, you know I don't have much money. I have a blueprint here that's pretty good, and I want to trade it for 1,200 units of roof tiles, Precision Parts Manufacturing Blueprint, Blue." Seeing the name of the blueprint, Fang Hao's heart stirred. He was all too familiar with the name Precision Parts. He had dropped this material when killing constructs. Fang Hao had originally accumulated some, planning to use them on constructs later. But not long ago, he suddenly recruited dwarves, and when building the large mountain furnace, he used up all the precision parts. Now, Long Trousers also had no inventory of precision parts. The precision parts blueprint belonged to special materials, generally not used for weapons and equipment. It was only useful for constructs or precision machinery. Unexpectedly, Deng Bin had actually obtained one. How did you get it? Fang Hao asked. Could it be that Deng Bin's side also had some construct scenes and obtained this blueprint? Deng Bin didn't hide anything and answered directly. I exchanged it from the dwarves. They also sell some flintlocks and stuff over there. I plan to save up enough war coins and buy some from them. So it was the dwarves. Precision parts, besides being used on constructs, are also widely used in dwarf machinery. Blueprints for flintlocks or various cannons all require precision parts. It seems Deng Bin's territory is near the dwarves. After understanding the situation, Fang Hao didn't ask any more questions. He immediately agreed. Okay, I've put the terracotta tiles on the shelf. Just exchange them. All right, thank you, boss. Deng Bin thanked him readily. If the dwarves have any good blueprints, you can contact me. If you don't have enough money, I can buy them, Fang Hao added. Understood, I get it. But I'll have to wait until the dwarves come over next time. I'll contact you when they have goods. Deng Bin naturally understood Fang Hao's meaning. Deng Bin didn't have many war coins, and it would be difficult to buy any high-level blueprints. But Fang Hao had money, even to the point of having nowhere to spend it. At that time, she could act as a middleman to complete the transaction. All right, the two ended the trade. 1,200 terracotta tiles disappeared, and Fang Hao's hand held a blueprint for precision parts. He immediately recorded it using the Lord's book. Precision parts, cast iron blocks 2, refined iron 1. The materials for precision parts now included refined iron. It was no wonder Deng Bin would sell the blueprint to him. Even if he recorded the blueprint, it would be difficult to mass-produce without refined iron. It would be better for her to exchange for what she needed from him. Ending the chat with Deng Bin, Fang Hao continued soaking in the hot spring. The next day, early morning. After breakfast, Fang Hao used demon teleportation to go directly to Bagong City. Originally, this city was the city of the Rockhead tribe. After Fang Hao gave it to the dwarves, it was renamed Bagong City. When Fang Hao and Jia and Di Mijia stepped out of the teleportation light screen, they saw some dwarves gathered around. These dwarves were bare-chested, revealing solid, exaggerated muscles. They held hand crossbows, flintlocks, iron picks, and various weapons, staring vigilantly at the three. I am Fang Hao. Tell Beilega to come see me. Fang Hao immediately stated his identity. Dwarves were the race Fang Hao had the shortest contact with. The dwarves only knew there was a human city lord who helped them rebuild a Bagong city, but most had never seen what this human looked like. Even if they had met once, the impression was somewhat vague after such a long time. On the other hand, Di Mijia's lizardman appearance was remembered by some dwarves. Immediately, someone was heard saying, I remember that lizard man. He should be the lord. Quick, go call the chief. The dwarves discussed in low voices, and someone quickly left to find Beilega. Not long after, the gathered crowd parted, and Beilega led a group of dwarf leaders quickly over. Upon seeing Fang Hao, he immediately stepped forward and said, Lord. Dwarves have a quick and fiery temper, but they maintained due respect for Fang Hao, who provided them with a stable place to live. Okay, tell everyone to disperse. There's nothing going on here, Fang Hao said. Beilega nodded and immediately ordered people to disperse the surrounding tribesmen, telling them to return to their respective posts and get back to work. After everyone dispersed, Beilega continued to ask, Lord, do you have any instructions for this visit? Nothing much. I have enough materials on hand, so I plan to build you 2 more mountain furnaces, Fang Hao said calmly. At the time, the main reason for only building 1 large mountain furnace for the dwarves was the lack of precision parts. And yesterday, he obtained the precision parts blueprint from Deng Bin. Now the conditions for continuing to build mountain furnaces were met, which could also increase the speed of iron smelting and prevent equipment manufacturing from being impossible due to insufficient materials. Hearing Fang Hao's words, Beilega's expression instantly lit up with joy. Stroking his wire-like beard, his face full of excitement, he said, This is great. This way we can completely speed up production. Seeing his appearance, Fang Hao also smiled and said, That's what I thought too. The group walked outside the city together. Bagong City's terrain was somewhat special, located between 3 tall mountains. One had already been used to build the large mountain furnace last time, and this time, Fang Hao planned to directly use the other two tall mountains as the foundation for large furnaces as well. He brought Belega to the front of the mountain. Fang Hao opened the Lord's book and found the large mountain furnace blueprint. Large mountain furnace. Wood 15750, stone 125, 8850, hard tough wood 27580, fine stone bricks 185470, thick tough leather 5435, iron 15820, cast iron blocks 8575, metal parts 1255, precision parts 420, red flame essence 22, perfect essence 10. First, make precision parts. Precision parts. Cast iron blocks 2, refined iron 1. Set the production quantity to 10. Hundredfold increase triggered. Obtain precision parts 1010. With enough precision parts, Fang Hao continued to select the two tall mountains and chose to build large mountain furnaces. Light enveloped the two mountain bodies, gradually constructing the structure of the furnaces. Soon, the furnaces were built, and Fang Hao's task was completed. Belega and the dwarves who followed also looked at the newly built furnaces, their faces flushed, excited with some disbelief. Eight Peaks Mountain only had one large furnace, and they already had three here. In some sense, they had the foundation to surpass Eight Peaks Mountain as long as they developed steadily. It wasn't impossible to reclaim what they had lost. I will have the trolls and orcs transport the mind or here. At that time, you'll need to organize people to clear out the beasts and dangers along the way to ensure the safety of the transport team. Fang Hao closed the Lord's book. Okay, sir, I will organize people to clear the beasts on the road when I get back. Belega immediately agreed. Fang Hao nodded and walked towards the city with the group. All right, let's go back. I still have some buildings to build for you directly. The group returned to Bagong City. Fang Hao continued to build diversion underground pipes, temple, and king's statue in the city. Also a large number of handcarts, mine rails, mine carts, and some useful production tools. When the king's statue was built in the temple, the height of the dwarves only reached the base of the statue. They looked up at the statue. Sir, this is a king's statue. If you need it, we can make you a metal one. Belega looked curiously at the statue in Fang Hao's image. Eight Peaks Mountain also had a huge iron statue of a king, cast purely from metal, of the greatest dwarf king. But it was much larger than Fang Hao's, and in terms of material, Fang Hao's was stone carved, while the dwarf one was pure metal. This one is fine, no need. Fang Hao refused the dwarf's kind offer. Setting up the statue was only for the divine personality to collect faith. It was uncertain if a metal one could collect it, and spending time and effort on it was unnecessary. Then, Fang Hao added, there's still one empty spot for a statue in the temple. What do you plan to build? If possible, we can build a statue of the god of forging, Belega said. God of forging, his name alone tells you what he does. But Fang Hao didn't have this statue. I only have the goddess of fertility, god of slaughter, god of undead, and god of deception, these four statues. Then the goddess of fertility, Belega said without hesitation. The goddess of fertility, besides having bonuses for planting, also has attribute bonuses for industry. And the remaining three were not suitable for dwarves, so they could only choose the goddess of fertility. Fang Hao nodded and built the statue of the goddess of fertility on the other statue base. After finishing the construction, Fang Hao chatted with Belega. A few days ago, I went to Lix's city. The dwarves who went to the temple to study are very diligent. When they return, they can use herbalism to treat everyone. Thank you for your trouble, sir. Belega also nodded and said. Fang Hao and Belega chatted for a while in the city. After giving the dwarves a few troll brew barrels, he used the teleportation array to return to his territory. Time flew by, 3 days later. In these few days, Rebecca showed unprecedented decisiveness. Following the names on the faceless list, she cleared out the city's nobles and wealthy merchants. Once confirmed, without exception, all were executed. Without a lengthy interrogation process, everyone was cleared within 3 days, regardless of their identity or the complexity of their background, without exception. When Fang Hao heard this news, he was also surprised by Rebecca's decisiveness. 10 a.m. Lix's city, in front of the city lord's mansion. Rebecca stood outside waiting. From afar, she saw 3 carriages, escorted by cavalry, stop in front of the city lord's gate. A servant opened the carriage door. A middle-aged man in luxurious clothing slowly stepped out of the carriage. Upon seeing Rebecca, he bowed like a gentleman. "Madam Rebecca." Seeing the arrival, Rebecca also greeted, "Oh, it's Mr. Hubert." Although both parties maintained noble etiquette, there was a strong sense of distance in their words. It seemed they were only being polite on the surface. Behind Hubert, another middle-aged man in brocade clothes walked down, wearing a gold ring on his hand, looking like a nouveau riche. "Madam Rebecca, this is Mr. Grote from the Marshall family," Hubert continued to introduce. Hearing the Marshall family, Rebecca re-examined the man. She also smiled. "Welcome to Lysis City, Mr. Grote." Grote's eyes scanned Rebecca up and down, momentarily lost in thought. Only when Rebecca took the initiative to greet him did he smile and say, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Madam Rebecca. You are even more beautiful than the legends say." "Thank you. Please come in," Rebecca said, then turned and led the way. The two followed behind, and Hubert continued to ask, "Why haven't I seen Lord Aubrey?" "My husband had an accident not long ago," Rebecca said in a flat tone, without any trace of sadness. Hubert and the other man were both stunned, frowned for a while, and then said, "My condolences, madam." "Yes, Aubrey did a lot for this city, and this time he even drew out all the faceless," Rebecca said. After Aubrey plotted to assassinate Rebecca, he completely angered Rebecca, and she purged all the faceless in the entire city. "So, the faceless in Lysis City have become so active?" Hubert asked in surprise. "Lysis City is still all right. No major disturbances have occurred," Rebecca said. The few of them walked and talked, arriving at the city lord's mansion. Before entering the city lord's mansion, Hubert called over a black-haired, black-eyed attendant and whispered a few words in his ear. Then, the black-haired attendant led the cavalry team and headed to the resting barracks together. Meanwhile, Hubert and Grote followed Rebecca into the city lord's mansion. Before dusk fell, Fang Hao used the teleportation light screen to return to Lysis City. Today, Rebecca had already notified him through the sound-transmitting conch that the people from the Federation had arrived in Lysis City. At the dinner party, Fang Hao was to appear as the city lord to dispel the Federal Council's idea of interfering in Lysis City. In the room, Jia helped Fang Hao change into a sharp noble suit. His tall and straight figure, coupled with his good looks, made Jia, who was standing beside him, praise him repeatedly for looking handsome. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, a mouse sound came from under the wardrobe nearby. A mouse, and Jia raised her hand to hit it, but was immediately stopped by Fang Hao. He explained, "Don't rush, this is the skull rat that exchanged information with me last time." The mouse under the wardrobe, with its big eyes, 2 white-haired skull rats, were jointly holding a folded letter. Fang Hao bent down and picked it up. The mouse turned its head and drilled back into the wardrobe, disappearing. He opened the letter, which contained information about Adeline. This was also information Fang Hao had exchanged using corrupted blood. There were 2 pieces of information in the intelligence. Rebecca conducted an investigation based on Adeline's appearance and name, and half a month ago, she entered Lysis City as a merchant's relative. The church's roster records that 52 years ago, priest Adeline managed the church orphanage, and later the orphanage was attacked by monsters, and priest Adeline also died in this attack. Mentioning the orphanage, Fang Hao immediately thought of the orphanage he had explored before. In the dilapidated basement, they found a Tier 7 fear eater composed of flesh, with countless mouths and eyes piled together. These fear eaters displayed intelligence, like a group of children who hadn't grown up. At that time, they were calling out for Teacher Adeline, saying that Teacher Adeline had left them here, waiting for the teacher to pick them up. It seems that these 2 people are very likely the same person. And now, recalling it again. With just the strength of Lysis City, the faceless killing Rebecca would not have needed a hero of Adeline's level at all. The focus might not have been Lysis City. After all, Fang Hao had intervened, and even the faceless didn't know Fang Hao's specific strength before. It is very likely that the main purpose was to go back and pick up the Fear Eaters. After all, they had been raised for decades and had gained some strength. There was also the evil doll and the priest's arm that he found in the secret room. It's a pity, she didn't expect that after Fang Hao got involved, he completely turned the situation around. Even if Fang Hao was in the plan, they couldn't have imagined that a crossing like him would have dark gold and orange heroes. What does it say? And Jia put her arm around Fang Hao's shoulder and asked curiously. Information about Adeline, Fang Hao said. Who is Adeline? It's the one from the last banquet, who had a big wing and fought with Lorina from the ground to the sky, Fang Hao explained. Oh, who is she? The information is not necessarily accurate. 52 years ago, she was a priest of the church. Later, she defected to the demons and lived until now and became a faceless. Fang Hao folded the paper and put it into his storage space. 52 years ago, then why is she still so young? And Zhao was also a little surprised. It should be the power of the demons. Can I learn? I also want to be young. Learn from whom? I don't know how. As the two were talking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Immediately after, the voice of a maid was heard. Lord City Lord, the madam asked me to inform you to go to the banquet hall. Okay, I know. Fang Hao replied, opened the door, and walked out. Fang Hao was actually reluctant to interact with these local nobles, who more or less carried an arrogant air of looking down on people. But this banquet was related to Lysis City, so he still needed to cooperate with Rebecca, whether it was Pruer City or Lysis City. Maintaining membership in the 100 Cities Federation still played a very important role in the development of the territory. Fang Hao opened the door and walked out. Outside the door, Asurti, Dimiturga, and many Lionheart Knights followed behind Fang Hao and went to the banquet hall together. The banquet hall of the City Lord's mansion was still being repaired. This banquet was held in another temporary hall nearby. Fang Hao hadn't arrived yet. But at this moment, the dining table was already full of people. Hubert, Grote, and one of Hubert's black-haired crossing attendants, as well as several guards. On the other side were Rebecca and a group of city officials. Madam Rebecca, there have been rumors outside that merchants in Lysis City are not allowed to leave the city. This seems to be inconsistent with the council's rules. Hubert asked with a smile, as if chatting casually. The human territory is only so large. Whether they are nobles or wealthy merchants, their relationships are intertwined. Some collude for profit, while others are related by marriage. It can be said that Rebecca's lockdown and the citywide hunt for the faceless had already spread to the ears of various cities outside. It was just for the purpose of encircling and suppressing the faceless, and after that, the city gates will be open to the outside, and anyone can enter and leave freely, Rebecca replied calmly. Hubert kept asking about things happening in the city. Rebecca was always able to find reasonable and unverifiable reasons to explain. Hubert's tone shifted again, and he immediately said, Madam Rebecca, I deeply regret the matter of Lord Aubrey, but according to the council's laws, I'm afraid you can no longer reside here. The council will arrange for a new city lord to manage Lysis City at that time. As soon as these words were spoken, the restaurant instantly fell silent. The city officials who were accompanying them instantly closed their mouths. Not a single person made any sound. One must know that Rebecca had been killing like crazy in the city these past 2 days. When a woman goes crazy, she is even more terrifying than a man. Just as everyone was nervously wondering what would happen next, Rebecca smiled and said, You don't need to worry about this. The city lord Aubrey had already made a will before his death, stating that the new city lord would take over after his death, and the new city lord also held an important position in the city before and is very familiar with the situation in Lysis City. Hubert's brows instantly furrowed. Oh, is there such a thing? Moreover, I have already married the new city lord, which was also Aubrey's dying wish. Rebecca said calmly. It was as if the things she was saying had nothing to do with her, and she was just reciting lines that had been written beforehand. Hubert, Grote, and the others all widened their eyes. They were surprised by Rebecca's answer. But Hubert also knew the reason behind it. Aubrey was just a puppet city lord before, and now it was just a change of person after his death. What surprised him was that Rebecca would handle these matters so calmly. Compared to previous years when Rebecca was willing to put on a show, now Rebecca didn't even bother to act. She just made sure that you couldn't find any loopholes in the regulations. Haha, then I'm a little eager to meet this new city lord. Hubert chuckled dryly and leaned back in his chair. After a while, intensive footsteps suddenly came from the corridor. Immediately after, a team of gold-armored soldiers strode in. Hubert's eyes widened. What was going on in the banquet hall? Before he could ask Rebecca, Fang Hao, who was surrounded, and 3 heroes strode in. Rebecca showed a gentle smile and said to everyone, Mr. Hubert, Mr. Grote, this is my husband, and the current city lord of Lysis City, Fang Hao. Clang. Hearing this name, the black-haired attendant sitting next to Hubert's body suddenly stiffened. The wine glass in his hand fell onto the table, and the bright red fruit wine splashed everywhere. Clang. The black-haired man's unusual behavior attracted everyone's attention. It also instantly stole the spotlight from the new city lord's grand entrance. Hubert was also startled by the sound next to him, frowned, and asked in a low voice, Is something wrong? Nothing, my lord. I'll tell you when we get back, the black-haired man replied softly. Hubert nodded, and when he turned back, Rebecca affectionately linked arms with Fang Hao and introduced, This is Mr. Hubert, the council representative from Nasser City in the 100 Cities Federation. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hubert, Fang Hao said with a smile. Transmigrator? Hearing Rebecca's introduction, Hubert and his companion's attention was completely focused on Fang Hao. They had guessed many people for the identity of the new city lord. Nobles in the city, or wealthy merchants who could provide large sums of money. With Rebecca's maturity and beauty, finding a powerful husband wouldn't be difficult at all. But they never guessed that the person appearing before everyone would be a young transmigrator. Seeing Rebecca affectionately linked with the young man, a wave of jealousy rose in everyone's hearts. If the news of Aubrey's death had spread earlier, men from various cities would probably have rushed to Lysis City to pursue Rebecca. At this moment, everyone had arrived, and the servants began to serve the food one after another. The 10-meter-long table was filled with sumptuous dishes. Hubert used a knife and fork, cutting a slice of beef, while saying softly, City Lord Fang Hao is truly young. You are a transmigrator, aren't you? Fang Hao didn't hide it either, playing his role well. Yes, it's just a title. As time passed, more transmigrators frequently interacted with the local natives, and this was no longer a secret. Perhaps ordinary residents didn't know much about this, but those in power had already learned about the existence of transmigrators through various means. Next to Hubert, attending the banquet, there was also a transmigrator. Fang Hao had seen him when he came in. The other person had been keeping his head down, just quietly eating. City Lord Fang Hao, how did you meet Lady Rebecca? Hubert continued to ask probing questions. Fang Hao replied, I have a mercenary group, and we met through some missions. Hearing mercenary, Hubert and his group showed expressions of disdain in their eyes. Transmigrators also had their advantages. But mercenary groups, this kind of life-on-the-edge profession, were considered even lower than bodyguards and guards in the eyes of nobles. Soldiers when entering the city, bandits when leaving. Mercenaries have always had a bad reputation. Hubert looked at Rebecca, then his gaze fell back on Fang Hao. He continued to ask, City Lord Fang Hao, in another month, it will be the Federation Council. The upper house has proposed unified command and deployment of armies from various cities. How is Lysis City considering this matter? After asking, Hubert remained silent, smiling and waiting for Fang Hao's answer. Fang Hao looked towards Rebecca beside him. The latter quietly shook her head. Fang Hao had no idea about any upper house proposal. He hadn't been city lord for even 2 days. Rebecca and I are currently discussing this matter. Once we have a result, we will state our position at this year's council meeting, Fang Hao said, then put the cut steak into his mouth. According to the agreement between Fang Hao and Rebecca, all matters concerning Lysis City were handled by Rebecca. As long as the decisions didn't conflict with the territory's development plan, he wouldn't interfere. If there were discrepancies, the two would also discuss it privately to make a more stable decision. As for the council, Fang Hao was not proficient in such matters, especially the power struggles among nobles. He didn't have the mind or the energy for it. Therefore, all council matters were handled by Rebecca, with him providing some support. Afterwards, Hubert asked a few more questions in succession. Fang Hao's answers were also quite perfunctory, just repeating the same couple of phrases. As they talked, the conversation died out. Hubert, having no more topics with Fang Hao, started talking to Rebecca again. Fang Hao also enjoyed the peace, quietly eating on the side, waiting for the banquet to end so he could go back and rest. And just then, Grote, who was beside Hubert, stood up with a wine glass. His hands were full of jeweled rings, practically blinding everyone. Grote Marshall was a very famous family in the Federation, and Grote was in charge of the family's business. He and Hubert had always been good friends, and this time they came to Lysis City together. It was his first time in Lysis City, and when he saw Rebecca, he was also amazed by her appearance. When he heard that this beautiful woman had just lost her husband, a feeling of destiny rose in his heart. Because, a month ago, his wife had also just passed away from illness. He was wealthy and never lacked women, but those women were incomparable to Rebecca. He hadn't spoken just now because he was waiting to see what kind of background and strength Rebecca's new husband had. Now, he was certain that this kid was just a transmigrator who knew nothing and was still wet behind the ears. Compared to this transmigrator, he could offer Rebecca more help. Grote held his wine glass and walked towards Rebecca with a smile, saying softly, "Lady Rebecca, it is an honor to meet you." The Marshall family had considerable strength in the Federation. They controlled the power of merchant groups and held a seat for the merchant group representative in the council. But in terms of status, there was still a big difference compared to a city lord like Rebecca. Rebecca simply nodded politely. Grote then said, "Lady Rebecca, I'm sorry to hear that Lysis City has encountered many troubles recently. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. The Marshall family's merchant group can." Before Grote could finish, Rebecca directly interrupted him. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Grote, but I don't need it at the moment." Grote was stunned, not expecting Rebecca to refuse so decisively. Rejection could also be heard in her tone. But he didn't mind and continued. Lysis City is facing many problems. In this annual council meeting, the upper house will become increasingly strict with Lady Rebecca's requirements. He paused, a slight smile playing on the corner of his mouth, and glanced at Rebecca's exquisite face and ample bosom. Actually, the solution is quite simple. As long as we discuss it in detail, we can figure out a way to solve it. If Lady Rebecca doesn't mind, after the banquet, I'd like to invite you. His tone sounded very polite, but he was using a rather old-fashioned way of trying to pick up a woman. Rebecca's expression was a bit unpleasant, and she said coldly, "Sorry, I won't trouble you." Fang Hao sat on the side, his brow also slightly furrowed. Although he and Rebecca were only husband and wife in name, it was a bit too much to try and hook up with Rebecca right in front of him. But he didn't say anything immediately. Clearly, this Mr. Grote had come to the wrong place, using bar-hopping methods on Rebecca. If they weren't guests, Rebecca would probably have ordered him to be chopped down immediately. That's truly a shame. Seeing that Rebecca was unmoved, Grote shrugged. A hint of gloom suddenly flashed in his eyes, and he no longer concealed it, saying with a sneer, "You should be aware of the influence of my Marshall family. My wife just passed away last month. I can marry you and give you support." Shaking the wine glass in his hand, the bright red fruit wine formed a vortex in the cup, and Grote continued, "However, I've given you the opportunity. If you don't want it, I won't force you. If Lady Rebecca changes her mind later, she can come to my room anytime to find me." These words were unusually domineering. Hard to believe they were spoken by a merchant to a city lord. And it was as if everything he offered was exactly what she needed, with a strong sense of threat as well. And Hubert, who was on the side, just watched silently, with no intention of speaking. Rebecca's face was icy cold. Being spoken to like this by a merchant, anger had already ignited in her heart. If it weren't for the fact that the Marshall family indeed had strong connections in the Federation, she would have immediately ordered this old pervert to be dragged out and beheaded. Mind your status, Grote. Go back to your seat and eat now. If you dare say one more word, I will read your words from today verbatim at the council meeting and let everyone in the Federation witness the might of your martial family, Rebecca said coldly. Grote was stunned, and he actually believed that Rebecca could do it. He didn't dare to continue speaking. He didn't dare to speak to Rebecca, but he turned his gaze onto Fang Hao. I can't handle Rebecca, but I can handle you, this transmigrator? Grote leaned back in his chair. You're Fang Hao. Yes, what is it? Fang Hao asked directly. His tone instantly ignited a blaze of anger in Grote's heart. A puppet city lord, used as a shield, dared to speak to him like that. Heh, who doesn't know Madame Lizabecca needs a kept man? You don't actually think you're the city lord, do you? Look at Aubrey. If you die, there will still be a second city lord to take your place. Grote sneered mockingly. These words were a direct insult to Fang Hao. But Fang Hao wasn't Lizabecca. If someone was being sarcastic in front of him, he didn't care about noble face. He said directly, this clown is drunk. Send him back to rest. Two guards stepped forward, signaling Grote to leave. Grote's face instantly darkened. He shouted, Transmigrator, you dare speak to me like that? As he spoke, he pushed away the two guards beside him. But before Grote could say anything else, bang! A Surti, acting as a guard, stepped forward and kicked Grote in the abdomen. Grote's body flew out like a cannonball. He stumbled and flew 2 or 3 meters before falling heavily to the ground. His body curled up like a shrimp. He fell unconscious. Hubert and the others widened their eyes, watching Grote get kicked away and lie on the ground like a dead dog. He was just a merchant. How could he withstand a kick from a Surti? But everything had happened too quickly. He didn't even have time to speak and stop it before Grote was knocked out. Fang Hao, what is the meaning of this? Hubert stood up and questioned loudly. Mr. Hubert must have just fallen asleep. Didn't you see him insult me? If I didn't teach him a lesson, he'd really think this was his own home and dare to boss me around. Fang Hao retorted mercilessly. Facing Hubert's questioning, Fang Hao showed no fear. He wasn't Aubrey, nor did these people have any leverage over him. Furthermore, he wasn't dependent on Lizabecca's connections. On the contrary, Lysa's city was already a part of his territory. He wasn't going to put up with this nonsense. Grote is from the Marshall family. He just said some nonsense while drunk. Is this how you treat guests? Hubert said loudly. Since you know you're a guest, you should know what to say and what not to say. This is the first time. I'll forgive his loose tongue. If there's a second time, I'll cut out his tongue. Fang Hao didn't back down. Hubert saw that Fang Hao was completely fearless, even looking like he might order arrests. His gaze fell on Lizabecca, and he asked sternly, Lizabecca, is this how you entertain guests? Lizabecca looked innocent, not understanding why he was asking her. After thinking for a moment, she replied, I've already had someone contact the temple. Someone will come to treat him soon. Mr. Hubert doesn't need to worry. Hubert's face turned red with anger. He swept a cold gaze across the room, unsure who to vent his anger on. In the end, he could only let out a cold snort. Let's go. Having said that, he quickly left with his group. Hubert and the others left. The entire dining hall instantly quieted down. This was Fang Hao's second time attending a high society dinner. Lizabecca, however, was accustomed to the verbal sparring among nobles and knew how to handle it. But when it came to Fang Hao, he wasn't familiar with any of this and didn't even know what the other party did. His counterattack was much simpler and more violent. He didn't even know what that Grote did. Lizabecca hadn't introduced him. Anyway, he was just kicked unconscious directly. Now that Hubert was gone, only the city's officials remained. They were all staring blankly at Fang Hao. They felt that this new city lord seemed very different from Aubrey. What are you looking at me for? Eat. Don't let those guys spoil everyone's mood, and don't waste food. Fang Hao motioned for everyone to continue eating. Everyone looked at Lizabecca. She nodded. The banquet continues. Don't mind them. Hearing Lizabecca's words, everyone resumed their activities, starting to chat while continuing the banquet. In a room, an auxiliary priest from the temple performed a simple examination on Grote. After taking the potion, there was no danger. He was just still unconscious and hadn't woken up yet. After finishing the examination, the auxiliary priest opened the door and left. Immediately after, Hubert's black-haired transmigrator attendant walked in at this moment and stood respectfully to the side. That Fang Hao is also a transmigrator. Do you know him? Hubert asked with a gloomy face. Hubert usually had two people with him. One was a guard, and the other was the transmigrator before him, Wang Dongshu. Wang Dongshu lowered his head and quickly explained, Sir, this Fang Hao is very famous among us transmigrators. I didn't expect to see him here either. Oh, very famous. Hubert became curious. Yes, very famous. He could be said to be ranked number one among us transmigrators. Half a month ago, he killed so many transmigrators by himself that no one dares to provoke him. Wang Dongshu immediately explained. The transmigrators all came together. Perhaps some had killed other transmigrators in secret. But in the channel, Fang Hao possessed a strong deterrent. Whether it was Li Tong, whose head was cut off earliest, or Yu Tianpeng, the leader of the Tianpeng alliance, they all left a deep impression on everyone. This was also why he unconsciously showed nervousness when he heard the name Fang Hao at that time. Just a transmigrator. The reason he can be ranked first is probably because he hooked up with Lizabeka very early on. Aubrey most likely died at their hands. Hubert said with a cold snort. He had been to Wang Dongshu's city, and it was just a small city with a few hundred people. Although transmigrators possessed many incredible abilities, their foundation was still too shallow to compare with them. The fact that Fang Hao could become the number one transmigrator now seemed clearly due to Lizabeka's support for him. Lisa's city was a city with a good foundation. Supporting a pretty boy she favored was nothing for Lizabeka. Although Wang Dongshu didn't agree with his words in his heart, he didn't dare to refute him directly. After all, he was currently dependent on Hubert and had no right to speak. After thinking for a moment, he continued, Lord Hubert, there's one more thing I need to mention. Speak. The lizard man beside Fang Hao and the person who attacked Lord Grote are both orange heroes. That squad of guards are also 8th-tier Lionheart Knights. Wang Dongshu said cautiously. Hearing these words, Hubert's eyes instantly widened. The reason he allowed Wang Dongshu to follow him wasn't for his bravery or strategy, but for the special abilities he possessed as a transmigrator. He could see the target's profession and tier, and could also create various items. These were the reasons he kept Wang Dongshu by his side. At first, he also thought that Lizabeka favored Fang Hao for this reason, and also because he was indeed fair-skinned and tender, which was why they got together. Now, hearing Wang Dongshu say 2 orange heroes and an 8th-tier guard squad, it was simply impossible. Are you sure you didn't see wrong? Hubert's tone was somewhat disbelieving. Sir, I wouldn't be mistaken about these things. Wang Dongshu said seriously. Hubert fell silent, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the armrest of the chair. After a while, he said, Are these Fang Hao's subordinates? I'm not sure. I guess even if Fang Hao is powerful, it's impossible for him to have 2 orange heroes. Could it be that the female city lord is backing him? Wang Dongshu asked tentatively. Fang Hao was indeed powerful, and he felt a bit nervous seeing Fang Hao. But he also didn't think Fang Hao's strength had reached this level. 2 orange heroes were already somewhat incredible. Hubert fell silent again for a long time. He murmured, I want to see what other secrets this Lysis city has that I don't know about. Those lords in the council might be very interested in this place. Having said that, he stood up again. He said to Wang Dongshu, Arrange for someone to take care of Grote. I'll go see what Lizabeka is up to.